Marina Valles knew real danger when she saw it, and it wasn't the crime lord who owned Blackthorn Manor. It was the woman who smiled at her every morning while programming a shock device locked around her wrist. For 3 months, Marina had cleaned blood from marble floors, laundered money-stained clothes, and never asked questions. But when the tracking band started punishing her for standing still, for resting, for being human, she realized she'd walked into something far worse than organized crime. She'd become property. And the only person who could save her was the one man she'd been taught to fear most. If you want to see how Marina escapes this nightmare, stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The kitchen timer read 4:47 a.m. when Marina's wrist began to vibrate. She was standing at the industrial sink, hands submerged in scalding water, scrubbing at a wine stain that had set into crystal stemware overnight. The vibration started as a gentle pulse, a reminder she'd learned to recognize over the past 3 months. Keep moving. Don't stop. Never stop. Marina pulled her hands from the water and grabbed the next glass, her movement sharp and efficient. The vibration stopped. She exhaled slowly, feeling the familiar ache in her shoulders, the burning in her feet. She'd been awake for 22 hours. Her shift officially started at 5, but she'd learned that arriving early meant fewer interactions with Celeste Harrow, and fewer interactions meant fewer corrections, fewer docked wages, fewer reasons for the band on her wrist to escalate from vibration to something worse. She'd experienced worse exactly 7 times. She didn't plan on making it 8. The estate kitchen was massive, all gleaming stainless steel and imported Italian tile, the kind of space that belonged in a restaurant, not a home. But Adrian Moretti didn't live like normal people. The crime lord's taste ran toward excess in everything: the cars in his garage, the art on his walls, the security detail that patrolled the grounds. Marina had understood what she was walking into when she took the job. A friend of a cousin had arranged the interview, had told her the pay was extraordinary, that Mr. Moretti valued discretion above all else, that if she could keep her head down and her mouth shut, she could send enough money home to Mexico to change her daughter Sophia's life. What the cousin's friend hadn't mentioned was Celeste. "You're wasting water." Marina's hands jerked, and the glass slipped. She caught it before it hit the sink, her heart hammering. She hadn't heard the door open. She never heard Celeste coming. "I'm sorry, Ms. Harrow. I'll be more careful." Marina kept her eyes down, kept her hands moving. The tracking band registered her pulse. She could feel it analyzing her, measuring her anxiety like a lie detector strapped to her skin. Celeste Harrow was 43 years old, impeccably dressed even at this ungodly hour, with ash blonde hair pulled back in a style that probably had a French name Marina would never learn. She moved through the kitchen with the kind of confidence that came from knowing every room was hers to command. She'd been managing Blackthorn Manor for 6 years, longer than Adrian had owned it, and she made sure everyone understood the hierarchy. Mr. Moretti owned the estate, but Celeste owned the people who kept it running. "The powder room on the second floor needs attention," Celeste said, her voice perfectly modulated, almost pleasant. "There's a ring around the toilet. Unacceptable." "Yes, Ms. Harrow. I'll take care of it as soon as I finish here." "You'll take care of it now." Marina's hands stilled for just a second, exhaustion making her slow, making her stupid, and the band on her wrist began to vibrate again. Stronger this time. A warning. She grabbed a dish towel and dried her hands quickly, the movement desperate enough that Celeste's smile widened. It wasn't a human expression. It was something a person practiced in mirrors until the muscles remembered the shape but forgot the feeling. "The cleaning supplies are in the third-floor utility closet," Celeste said. "I trust you remember where that is?" "Yes, Ms. Harrow." The third floor. The opposite end of the manor from the second-floor powder room. It would take Marina 8 minutes to retrieve the supplies and return, 8 minutes of unnecessary walking, designed specifically to waste her time and energy. Celeste did this constantly, sent her on circular routes through the estate, made her retrieve items from distant closets when identical supplies were stored 10 feet away. It had taken Marina 3 weeks to understand it was intentional. She left the kitchen, walking at the pace the band required, not running, but never quite comfortable, a speed that ate away at her joints and kept her perpetually breathless. The manor was still dark, lit only by the small emergency lights along the baseboards. Her footsteps echoed on the marble floors. Somewhere above her, Adrian Moretti was sleeping in a bed that probably cost more than Marina would earn in 5 years. She'd seen him exactly 11 times since starting work. He was younger than she'd expected for a crime lord, 37, according to the staff gossip, with dark hair and the kind of face that belonged in movies, all sharp angles and dangerous beauty. He dressed like old money, spoke like educated money, and carried himself like someone who'd never had to justify his existence to anyone. The first time Marina had encountered him in the hallway, she'd pressed herself against the wall and dropped her eyes, waiting for him to pass. He'd paused, seemed about to say something, then continued on his way without acknowledging her presence. She preferred it like that. Invisible was safe. The third-floor hallway smelled like lemon polish and old wood. Marina opened the utility closet, grabbed the caddy of cleaning supplies, and started back toward the stairs. Her wrist vibrated once, a gentle pulse, almost approving. Good. Keep moving. You're doing well. The band was surprisingly sophisticated for something so cruel. It monitored her movement, her heart rate, her location within the estate. It buzzed when she slowed down, when she paused too long, when she strayed into areas Celeste had deemed off-limits. And if Marina ignored the vibrations, if she sat down, if she stopped moving, if she tried to rest, it escalated. The first shock had caught her in the laundry room on her 9th day of work. She'd been folding sheets, and her lower back had seized up, the muscles cramping so badly she'd had to lean against the dryer for support. The band had vibrated 3 times in quick succession, then delivered a jolt that felt like touching a live wire. Marina had collapsed, biting through her lip to keep from screaming, and when she'd finally struggled back to her feet, Celeste had been standing in the doorway. "The band monitors your productivity," Celeste had explained, her tone patient, almost motherly. "It's for your own good, Marina. It helps you stay focused, keeps you safe. You understand, don't you? This is a secure facility. We need to know where everyone is at all times. It's policy." There was no policy. Marina understood that now. The other housekeepers didn't wear bands. The groundskeepers didn't wear bands. Only Marina, and before her, a Guatemalan woman named Rosa, who'd left suddenly in the middle of the night 3 months before Marina arrived. No forwarding address, no goodbye. Just gone. Marina reached the second-floor powder room and got to work. The toilet was pristine. No ring, no stain, nothing wrong at all. She scrubbed it anyway, knowing Celeste would check, knowing that if she reported the task complete without putting in enough time, the band would register her dishonesty through her elevated heart rate and shortened breathing. The device was training her, and she was learning. By 6 a.m., the rest of the staff began arriving. Marina heard their voices drifting up from the service entrance. Marco, the head groundskeeper, Diana and Patricia, the other housekeepers, James, the chef, and Victor, who managed security and never smiled. They moved through the morning with easy confidence, stopping to chat over coffee, laughing at inside jokes Marina would never be part of. She kept scrubbing. At 7:30, Celeste found her cleaning the guest bathroom on the east wing. "Mister, Moretti's breakfast will be served at 8, she said. "Make sure the dining room is perfect. He's having a visitor today. Someone important." "Yes, Ms. Harrow." "And Marina?" Celeste's hand settled on Marina's shoulder, the touch light as a butterfly, cold as a threat. "Try to stay out of sight. Mr. Moretti's guests don't need to see the help." Marina nodded, keeping her expression carefully neutral even as the band registered her racing pulse. She waited until Celeste's footsteps faded, then leaned against the sink, pressing her forehead to the cool mirror. In the reflection, she looked like a stranger, dark circles under her eyes, her skin sallow from lack of sleep, her mouth set in a permanent line of tension. She thought about Sophia. Her daughter would be waking up now in her grandmother's small house outside Monterey. 6 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with butterflies and the color purple. Marina sent money every week, half her paycheck, sometimes more, and her mother would take Sophia to the market, let her pick out something special. A new dress. A toy. Books. That was what this was for. That was what made it bearable. The dining room took 30 minutes to prepare. Fresh flowers in the centerpiece, silverware aligned perfectly, water glasses positioned exactly 2 inches from the edge of each plate setting. Marina worked quickly, ignoring the burning in her wrists, the heaviness in her legs. The band pulsed gently. Approval. Encouragement. Good girl. Keep going. She was adjusting the napkin fold on the second place setting when she heard the voices. "Appreciate you making the trip," Adrian was saying. His voice was deeper than Marina remembered, rough with early morning. "I know your time is valuable." "For you, Adrian, it's no trouble." The second voice belonged to a man with a thick accent. Italian, maybe, or Eastern European. "Besides, I wanted to see this famous estate of yours, the Blackthorn legend." They entered the dining room, and Marina immediately dropped into a crouch, pretending to adjust the hem of the tablecloth. Through the fringe of her hair, she caught glimpses. Adrian in a charcoal suit that probably cost what she made in 6 months, his dark hair still damp from a shower. His companion was older, late 50s, wearing enough gold jewelry to fund a small revolution. "Everything looks excellent," Adrian said, and for a moment Marina thought he was talking to his guest. Then she realized he'd glanced at the table settings, at her work. She kept her head down, made herself smaller. "You have good staff," the visitor observed. "Hard to find these days, people with proper discretion." "Celeste runs a tight operation." Something in Adrian's tone made Marina's hands still. She couldn't identify it, hesitation maybe, or doubt, but it was there, a crack in the smooth facade. "Speaking of operations," the visitor continued, "I have the information you requested. The shipment manifest from Caracas, the banking transfers, everything. But Adrian, this is dangerous business. If Volkov finds out you're digging into his supply chain, let me worry about Volkov." Adrian's voice had gone cold. "I want to know every detail, every shipment, every route, every person on the payroll." Marina slowly backed toward the service door, keeping her movements fluid and quiet. The band stayed silent. She'd almost made it to the hallway when the visitor spoke again. "You keep a clean house, Adrian. No loose ends. I respect that." "I try." "Good. Loose ends get people killed." Marina slipped through the door and closed it silently behind her. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, willing the trembling to stop before the band noticed, and decided her fear meant guilt, meant deception, meant punishment. The rest of the day passed in a blur of tasks. Marina cleaned 7 bathrooms, changed linens in 4 guest bedrooms, polished the silver in the formal dining room, and scrubbed the floors in the East Wing hallway until her knees were raw. The band pulsed constantly, a metronome keeping time with her heartbeat, pushing her forward when exhaustion tried to slow her down. At 3 p.m., she was dusting the library when she found the photograph. It had fallen behind one of the leather chairs, a small thing, bent at the corner, the colors faded. It showed a young woman in a garden, laughing at something off camera. She wore the same uniform Marina did, the Blackthorn Manor insignia on her collar. On the back, written in careful script, "Rosa, July 2024. Marina's blood went cold. Rosa. The woman who'd disappeared. The one who'd worked here before Marina, who'd worn the same band, who'd left without warning, or maybe hadn't left at all. "Find something interesting?" Marina spun around. Celeste stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway lights, her expression unreadable. Just a photograph. Behind the chair." Marina held it up, trying to keep her hand steady. "Should I throw it away?" "Let me see." Celeste crossed the room in 3 precise steps and plucked the photo from Marina's fingers. Her face remained perfectly composed as she studied the image, but something shifted in her eyes, a calculation, cold and quick. "Rosa was careless with her belongings. I'm not surprised she left things behind." Did she find another job?" "She returned home." Celeste slipped the photograph into her jacket pocket. "Family emergency, very sudden. She didn't even collect her final paycheck." A pause. "I hope you're not thinking of leaving us, Marina. It would be unfortunate if you broke your contract." "No, Ms. Harrow, I'm not going anywhere." "Good." Celeste's smile returned, that practiced curve of lips without warmth. "Because you know what happens when people break contracts, don't you? The immigration authorities get notified. Paperwork gets filed. Questions get asked about work visas and legal documentation. It becomes very complicated." Marina's visa was completely legitimate. She'd made sure of that before accepting the job. But the threat still landed like a fist to her stomach because she understood what Celeste was really saying. "You're vulnerable. You're alone. You're mine." "I understand, Ms. Harrow." "I knew you would." Celeste turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Marina, Mr. Moretti has requested that all staff submit to a health screening next week. Routine physicals, blood work, that sort of thing, just to ensure everyone is performing at their best. After Celeste left, Marina sank into the leather chair, her legs finally giving out. The band vibrated once, a warning, but she didn't care. She needed to sit. She needed to think. A health screening, blood work. The band monitoring her vitals 24 hours a day. They were documenting her deterioration, building a paper trail that would show she'd been healthy when she arrived, that any decline was her own fault, her own weakness. If she collapsed, if she broke, if she ended up like Rosa, gone without explanation, there would be medical records proving it was inevitable. Marina pulled up her sleeve and studied the band. It was seamless, locked with a mechanism she couldn't access, the metal warm from contact with her skin. She tried to remove it once, late at night in her room, using a butter knife from the kitchen. The device had shocked her unconscious. She'd woken up 3 hours later on the floor, her wrist burned, Celeste standing over her with an expression of profound disappointment. "The band is for your protection," she'd said softly. "Fighting it only hurts you. Accept it, Marina. It's so much easier when you accept it." Now, sitting in the library with her body screaming for rest, Marina understood the full scope of what Celeste had built. This wasn't just about control. It was about breaking her so completely that she'd accept anything, believe anything, become so dependent on Celeste's approval that she'd never question, never fight back, never leave. And it was working. Her wrist vibrated again, longer this time, more insistent. Marina forced herself to stand. She had to keep moving, had to finish her tasks, had to survive. She made it until 8 p.m. before her body started to shut down. She was in the kitchen, preparing the evening tea service, when her vision went gray at the edges. She grabbed the counter, fighting to stay upright. The band vibrated 3 times in rapid succession, the final warning before escalation. "Please," she whispered to no one. "Please, I just need a minute." The shock hit like lightning in her veins. Marina's knees buckled and she went down hard, her shoulder hitting the cabinet, china clattering. The band continued pulsing, delivering smaller shocks now, punishment for stillness, for stopping, for failing. Through the haze of pain, she heard footsteps. "Marina?" Not Celeste's voice, deeper, male. She couldn't respond, couldn't move. The band shocked her again, and this time she did scream, a broken sound that she barely recognized as her own. "What the hell?" Strong hands gripped her shoulders, steadied her. "Stop moving. Just stay still." "Can't," Marina gasped. "Can't stop. It'll—" Another shock. Adrian Moretti's face came into focus above her, his expression shifting from confusion to something darker as he noticed the band on her wrist, saw the way it pulsed, the way her body convulsed. "What is this?" His voice had gone deadly quiet. "What the fuck is this thing?" Marina tried to explain, tried to tell him it was policy, it was for her protection, it was helping her be better. All the things Celeste had taught her to say. But the words wouldn't come. She could only shake, could only endure, could only hope he'd leave before she said something wrong and made everything worse. Adrian's jaw tightened. He reached for the band, examining the locking mechanism, and Marina's panic spiked because no one touches it, Celeste said. No one touches it. Breaking it means worse punishment, means, who put this on you? Ms. Harrow. She said it's policy, for security. Security. Adrian's eyes were black with rage. This is a fucking shock collar. This is... He stopped, clearly fighting for control. How long have you been wearing this? 3 months since I started. And the others? Diana? Patricia? Just me. Marina's voice broke. Just me. Adrian pulled out his phone and made a call. Get me Celeste Harrow. Now. A pause. I don't care if she's off duty. Get her to my office in 10 minutes, or she can start looking for new employment. He ended the call and looked back at Marina. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the barely contained violence in the set of his shoulders. This was the man who had built an empire on fear and blood and calculated ruthlessness. This was Adrian Moretti, and he was looking at her like she was something precious that had been broken on his watch. Can you stand? He asked quietly. Marina nodded, not trusting her voice. Adrian helped her up, his grip careful but firm, and guided her to one of the kitchen chairs. The band had stopped shocking her. It seemed satisfied now that she was moving again, now that someone was witnessing her obedience. "Stay here," Adrian said. "Don't go anywhere. I'm going to fix this. Please don't—" Marina stopped herself, swallowed the plea, but Adrian had already heard it. "Don't what?" "Don't make it worse. Ms. Harrow will think I complained. She'll know I told you, and she'll what, Marina?" Adrian's voice was dangerously soft. "What exactly will Ms. Harrow do?" "Everything. Nothing. Fire her. Report her. Make the shocks constant. Make her disappear like Rosa." Marina couldn't say any of it. The band would know she was betraying Celeste, would know she was being disloyal, would punish her for it. "Nothing," she finally whispered. "She won't do anything. I'm sorry, Mr. Moretti. I shouldn't have. I was just tired. I should have been more careful." Adrian studied her for a long moment, and Marina saw the exact second he understood what Celeste had done to her. Not just the band, not just the control, but the way she'd colonized Marina's thoughts, made her apologize for her own abuse, made her believe she deserved this. "You have nothing to be sorry for," he said quietly. "Nothing. Do you understand me?" Marina nodded, though she didn't believe him, couldn't believe him. The band pulsed once against her wrist, a gentle reminder of who really owned her here. Adrian left the kitchen, and Marina sat in the chair, shaking. Somewhere in the house, Celeste was being summoned, would be arriving soon. Would see Marina sitting here, resting, being attended to like she was important, like she mattered. The consequences would be severe. Marina stood up, ignoring the way her legs trembled, and returned to work. She had to finish the tea service, had to complete her tasks, had to prove she was still useful, still obedient, still worth keeping. The band pulsed approvingly. "Good. Keep going. Don't stop." In the distance, she heard raised voices from Adrian's office. His low and controlled, Celeste's climbing toward something sharp and defensive. Marina scrubbed the counter, polished the already clean silverware, organized the spice rack with shaking hands. She had no idea what was happening in that office. Had no idea whether Adrian would help her, or whether this would make everything infinitely worse. All she knew was that for the first time since arriving at Blackthorn Manor, someone had looked at her suffering and called it by its real name. And that small acknowledgement felt more dangerous than any shock the band could deliver. The voices from Adrian's office cut off abruptly at 9:15. Marina had moved to the formal dining room, clearing away the untouched tea service with movements that had become purely mechanical. Her hands worked independently of her brain now, guided by muscle memory and the band's constant monitoring. Set the tray down, stack the cups. Don't let anything break. Keep moving. Footsteps in the hallway. 2 sets, one sharp and precise, the other heavy with barely controlled rage. Marina's pulse spiked, and the band registered it immediately with a warning vibration. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to project calm, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Through the dining room doorway, she caught a glimpse of Celeste walking past, her spine rigid, her face composed into that familiar mask of professional courtesy. But something was different. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, and her hands, usually so graceful, were clenched into fists at her sides. Adrian's voice followed her down the hall. "I want a full inventory of every piece of equipment in the security office. Every monitoring device, every tracker, everything. On my desk by tomorrow morning." "Of course, Mr. Moretti." Celeste's voice was perfectly level, but Marina heard the hairline fracture underneath. "I'll have Victor compile the list immediately." "Victor reports to me now, not to you." A pause. "I understand." "I'm not sure you do." Adrian appeared in the hallway, his suit jacket discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up like he'd been preparing for physical work. "But you will." Celeste continued walking, her heels clicking against the marble with metronomic precision. She didn't look toward the dining room, didn't acknowledge Marina's presence, but Marina felt the weight of her awareness like pressure against her skull. "You did this. You complained. You broke the rules." Marina's wrist began to vibrate. Not the band's usual rhythm, but something erratic, almost confused, as if the device itself wasn't sure whether she'd done something wrong or not. Adrian stood in the hallway for a moment after Celeste disappeared, one hand pressed against the back of his neck, his expression dark. Then he turned and saw Marina through the doorway. "You're still working." It wasn't a question, but Marina answered anyway. "I haven't finished the tea service, Mr. Moretti. I need to clean the silver and put everything back in the—" "Leave it." But Ms. Harrow said— I don't give a damn what Ms. Harrow said. Adrian crossed into the dining room, his presence filling the space in a way that made Marina want to back up, to make herself smaller. "How long has it been since you ate something?" The question caught her off guard. "I had breakfast. This morning." "What did you eat?" Marina's mind went blank. Had she eaten breakfast? She'd been in the kitchen early, had made coffee for the staff, had cleaned up after the morning meal service, but had she actually sat down and eaten anything herself? The day had started at 4:30, and now it was past 9, and somewhere in those 17 hours there must have been food, must have been something, but she couldn't remember. I'm not sure." Adrian's jaw tightened. He pulled out one of the dining chairs and pointed at it. "Sit down." "Mr. Moretti, I really should finish. That wasn't a request." Marina sat. The band vibrated once, a warning, but she ignored it. Adrian disappeared into the kitchen, and Marina heard the sounds of cabinets opening, the refrigerator door, dishes clinking. Her wrist began pulsing more insistently. "Get up. Keep moving. This is wrong." She gripped the edge of the table, fighting the urge to stand. Every instinct Celeste had cultivated over the past 3 months screamed at her to get back to work, to stop being lazy, to prove she deserved to stay. But Adrian had given her a direct order, and she didn't know which would bring worse consequences, obeying him or obeying the band. Adrian returned carrying a plate with bread, cheese, and sliced apples. He set it down in front of her along with a glass of water. "Eat." "I'm not hungry." "You're lying." He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, his dark eyes fixed on her face. "When was the last time you had a full meal? And don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me the truth." Marina looked at the food, her stomach clenched, but not with hunger, with fear. If she ate now, she'd lose time. Celeste would see she'd been sitting, resting, being treated like a guest instead of staff. The consequences would compound. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Celeste never forgot a transgression. "Marina." Adrian's voice was quieter now, almost gentle. "The band on your wrist. It monitors your vitals, doesn't it? Heart rate, movement, probably sleep patterns." She nodded slowly. "So Celeste knows exactly how much you're eating, how much you're sleeping, how far you're pushing yourself past the point of collapse." He leaned forward, his forearms resting on the table. "How long did she tell you that you could survive like this?" "She didn't. It's not like that. The band helps me stay focused, keeps me productive. It's for my own good." "Did she tell you that?" "Yes." "And you believed her?" Marina's throat tightened. "She's been managing this estate for 6 years, Mr. Moretti. She knows what she's doing." "She knows exactly what she's doing," Adrian agreed. "The question is whether you understand what that is." Marina didn't answer, couldn't answer, because the truth was sitting somewhere in the space between what she'd been taught to believe and what her body was screaming at her every minute of every day. Celeste had taken her apart, piece by piece, sleep, food, rest, dignity, and rebuilt her into something useful, something obedient, something broken. "Eat," Adrian said again. "Please." The please undid something in Marina's chest. She picked up a piece of bread with shaking hands and took a small bite. It tasted like sawdust in her mouth, but she forced herself to chew, to swallow. The band on her wrist pulsed once, then went quiet, as if it wasn't sure how to interpret this deviation from routine. Adrian watched her eat 3 bites before he spoke again. "I'm having the band removed tomorrow. A specialist is flying in from Boston, someone who works with electronic security systems. He'll be here by noon." Marina's hand froze halfway to her mouth. "No. It's not negotiable." "You don't understand. If you remove it, Celeste she'll know I talked to you. She'll think I complained, and she'll—" Marina's breath caught. "The last person who wore this band, her name was Rosa. She worked here before me, and one day she was just gone. No goodbye, no forwarding address, nothing. Celeste said she went home for a family emergency, but I found her picture in the library, and the way Celeste looked at it—" She stopped, realizing she was saying too much, revealing too much. But Adrian's expression had shifted into something harder, colder. Tell me about Rosa. I don't know anything. I never met her. Celeste mentioned her once, said she left suddenly, and then today I found the photo and Marina set down the bread, her appetite completely gone. Please don't take the band off. Please. I'll be more careful. I'll work harder. I won't complain again. Just leave it alone. You didn't complain. You collapsed. There's a difference. It won't happen again. You're right. It won't. Adrian stood up, and Marina instinctively flinched, her body preparing for punishment that didn't come. He walked to the sideboard and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey from a crystal decanter, drank it in one swallow, then turned back to face her. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that? Marina nodded, though honesty felt like the most dangerous thing he could ask for. Are you afraid of me? The question hung in the air between them. Marina searched for the right answer, the safe answer, but Adrian had asked for honesty, and something about the way he was looking at her, like she was a person, not a problem, made her tell the truth. Everyone's afraid of you, Mr. Moretti. That's not what I asked. Marina met his eyes. Yes, I'm afraid of you. You're Adrian Moretti. You run half the criminal enterprise on the East Coast. You have people killed. You make problems disappear. So yes, I'm afraid of you. But I'm more afraid of Celeste. Something flickered across Adrian's face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Why? Because you're a known danger. Everyone understands what you are, what you're capable of. But Celeste, she smiles while she hurts you. She makes you believe it's your fault, that you deserve it, that if you just tried harder, worked better, she'd stop. Except she never stops. She just finds new ways to make you smaller until you can't remember what it felt like to stand up straight. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, How much is she paying you? $800 a week. Your contract says $1,200. Marina's stomach dropped. No, that can't be right. Ms. Harrow showed me the paperwork. $800 with room and board included. I sign off on all household expenses personally. Every staff member's salary comes directly from my accounts. Adrian pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. This is your employment file. $1,200 per week, standard rate for live-in housekeeping staff. Plus benefits, paid time off, health insurance. The numbers on the screen didn't make sense. Marina had never seen health insurance paperwork, had never been offered paid time off, had never received more than $800 in any weekly transfer. Where's the rest of the money going? Her voice sounded hollow. That's what I'm going to find out. Adrian put the phone away. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting in the city. While I'm gone, you're going to rest. No cleaning, no tasks, nothing. Just stay in your room and sleep. Celeste will notice. Celeste won't be here. I'm sending her to our warehouse in Newark to conduct an inventory audit. It'll take her all day. Marina wanted to feel relief, but all she felt was mounting dread. Celeste would know this was punishment, would know Adrian was isolating her, investigating her, preparing to dismantle everything she'd built. And when people backed Celeste into corners, bad things happened. Rosa's photograph flashed through Marina's mind, that laughing girl in the garden who'd disappeared without a trace. She's going to hurt me, Marina whispered. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but eventually. She'll find a way. Not if I stop her first. You can't watch me every second, and Celeste is patient. She'll wait until you're distracted, until you're away on business, and then... Marina's wrist vibrated 3 times in rapid succession. The band had been quiet while she ate, but now it was back, agitated by her elevated heart rate, her rapid breathing. I should go. I need to finish my work. Marina, please, Mr. Moretti. I can't do this right now. I can't think about money or contracts or what happens next. I just need to get through tonight. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression must have convinced him to let it go. Fine. Finish your shift, but you're eating breakfast tomorrow, a real meal, and then you're resting. That's an order. Marina nodded and stood up, her legs unsteady. She gathered the tea service with mechanical efficiency, her mind spinning. $400 a week, stolen, for 3 months. That was $4,800 that should have gone to Sophia, to her mother, to the life she was trying to build from nothing. Celeste had been robbing her blind while torturing her with a shock device and calling it policy. Marina carried the tray to the kitchen, set it in the sink, and started washing. The hot water burned her hands, but she welcomed the pain. It was clean, simple, something she understood. Not like the chaos currently tearing through her understanding of Blackthorn Manor. She worked until midnight, cleaning the already clean surfaces, organizing the already organized pantry, doing anything to avoid going back to her room. Because once she was alone, once the day finally ended, she'd have to confront everything Adrian had told her. Would have to decide whether to trust a crime lord who'd shown her more kindness in 2 hours than Celeste had shown in 3 months. When she finally climbed the stairs to the staff quarters on the 3rd floor, her legs were trembling with exhaustion. Her room was small but private. A narrow bed, a dresser, a window overlooking the back gardens. Marina closed the door and locked it, then sank onto the bed without bothering to undress. The band pulsed once, gently. Rest now. You've earned it. Marina looked at the device on her wrist. In the dim light from the window, she could see the faint burn marks on her skin where it had shocked her earlier. How many times had it hurt her? 20? 30? She'd stopped counting after the first week, had learned to anticipate the punishments, to move constantly so they wouldn't come. She'd been trained like an animal. And she'd let it happen. No, that wasn't fair. She hadn't let anything happen. She'd been trapped, isolated, systematically stripped of her ability to resist. Celeste had chosen her carefully. A single mother, an immigrant, someone with no local connections, no support system, no one who'd come looking if she disappeared. Just like Rosa. Marina pulled out her phone, a basic model, nothing fancy, but it worked. She opened her photo gallery and scrolled to the pictures of Sophia. Her daughter in her school uniform, gap-toothed smile bright as sunlight. Sophia holding a butterfly she'd caught in the garden. Sophia asleep with a book on her chest, exhausted from reading. This was why Marina stayed, why she endured, why she'd convinced herself that suffering was acceptable if it meant her daughter had a better life. But what kind of life could Marina give Sophia if she worked herself to death first? What kind of example was she setting, teaching her daughter that a woman's worth was measured in how much pain she could silently absorb? Marina's phone buzzed, a text from her mother. Sophia asks about you every day. When can she visit? Soon, Marina typed back. I'm saving money. Maybe this fall. The lie tasted bitter. She had no savings. Celeste was stealing half her paycheck, and the rest went to basic necessities and money for her mother. There would be no visit in the fall, no reunion in the garden, no moment where Marina could hold her daughter and feel like the sacrifice had been worth it. Unless things changed. Unless she trusted Adrian. Marina lay back on the bed, still fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. The band monitored her decreasing heart rate with apparent approval. Somewhere below her, Adrian was probably in his office, making phone calls, starting whatever investigation he'd promised. And somewhere else in the manor, maybe in her private suite, maybe already in bed, Celeste was planning her next move. Marina closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but every time she started to drift off, she'd jerk awake, convinced she'd heard footsteps in the hallway, convinced Celeste was coming to punish her for sitting at Adrian's table, for eating his food, for accepting his help. The night stretched on forever. At 4 a.m., Marina gave up on sleep and got dressed. The band pulsed with approval. Early start, good, productive, and she let it guide her downstairs. Better to be working than lying awake drowning in anxiety. The kitchen was dark and quiet. Marina started coffee, then began prep work for breakfast service. Her hands moved through familiar motions, but her mind was elsewhere, circling around Adrian's words. $1,200 a week. Health insurance. Paid time off. If he was telling the truth, and why would he lie? Then everything Celeste had told her was fabricated. The low salary, the strict monitoring, the total control over her schedule and movements. All of it designed to keep Marina trapped and dependent. Marina was measuring flour for pancake batter when the kitchen door opened. She turned, expecting to see James arriving early for his shift. It was Celeste. She stood in the doorway, perfectly dressed despite the early hour, her expression pleasant and calm. "Good morning, Marina. You're up early." "Yes, Ms. Harrow. I wanted to get a head start on breakfast." "How dedicated." Celeste moved into the kitchen, her heels clicking on the tile. "I heard you had an eventful evening. Mr. Moretti seemed quite concerned about your well-being. Marina's pulse spiked, and the band registered it immediately. She forced herself to breathe slowly. I wasn't feeling well. He was kind enough to check on me. How thoughtful of him. Celeste smiled, and Marina saw the predator behind the mask. But you're feeling better now? No lasting effects from your little episode? I'm fine, Ms. Harrow. Excellent. Celeste reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small plastic card, the kind used for hotel room keys. Mr. Moretti mentioned something about sending me to Newark today for an inventory audit. Apparently there's been some confusion in the records. She set the card on the counter between them. But before I go, I wanted to give you this. It's a master access card for the estate's secure storage areas. I'll need you to conduct a full supply inventory while I'm away. Count every item, note any discrepancies, compile a detailed report. Marina stared at the card. The secure storage areas were in the basement, far from the main house, isolated. If something happened to her down there, no one would hear. No one would know. I'm not sure I'm qualified to... Nonsense. You're perfectly capable. Celeste pushed the card closer. Unless you're saying you can't handle the responsibility? If that's the case, perhaps we should reconsider your employment here. I'd hate to keep someone on staff who isn't up to the job. The threat was clear. Take the card, go to the basement, or lose everything. Marina picked up the card with shaking hands. I'll complete the inventory, Ms. Harrow. I knew you would. Celeste's smile widened. Oh, and Marina? The security cameras in the basement haven't been working properly for the past few weeks. Electrical issues, apparently. Victor keeps meaning to fix them, but you know how these things go. So if you have any problems down there, if you need help, you'll have to come find someone. The intercoms don't reach that far underground. No cameras, no intercoms, no witnesses. Marina understood exactly what was happening. Celeste was isolating her, cutting her off from potential help, setting the stage for an accident that would look like negligence or clumsiness. Maybe Marina would fall down the stairs. Maybe she'd be found unconscious, the victim of some electrical malfunction. Maybe she'd simply disappear, just like Rosa. I understand, Ms. Harrow. Good girl. Celeste turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. Mr. Moretti mentioned sending a specialist to look at your tracking band. I want you to know that if that device is removed, I'll have no way to monitor your safety. No way to know if you're in distress or need assistance. It would be unfortunate if something happened to you and no one could find you in time. The message was crystal clear. The band is your leash, but it's also your lifeline. Remove it and you're completely vulnerable. After Celeste left, Marina stood in the kitchen for 5 full minutes, the access card cold in her palm, her mind racing through impossible calculations. She could refuse to go to the basement, but then Celeste would fire her, report her to immigration, make sure she'd never work again. She could tell Adrian, but he was leaving for the city, and by the time he returned, anything could have happened. Or she could go to the basement and walk directly into whatever trap Celeste had prepared. The band vibrated gently, urging her to make a decision, to keep moving. Marina looked at it with something close to hatred. This device had been breaking her for 3 months, and now it was the only thing preventing Celeste from making her disappear entirely. She was trapped in a system with no exits. Marina tucked the access card into her pocket and finished preparing breakfast. At 6 a.m., the rest of the staff began arriving, and the kitchen filled with the normal morning chaos. James took over the stove. Diana and Patricia appeared to set up the dining room. Victor stopped by to grab coffee before starting his security rounds. No one noticed that Marina was terrified. No one saw the way her hands shook, the way she kept touching the card in her pocket like a talisman. At 7:30, Adrian came downstairs dressed in a dark suit, his expression preoccupied. He accepted coffee from James, exchanged a few words with Victor about perimeter security, then headed toward the garage. He didn't look toward Marina, didn't acknowledge her presence. She told herself it was better this way, safer, less suspicious. But part of her had been hoping he'd notice, that he'd see the fear in her eyes and understand that leaving her here today was a mistake. The garage door closed. The sound of Adrian's car faded down the driveway, and Marina was alone with Celeste's trap waiting in the basement. She worked through the morning, completing her normal tasks with mechanical precision. The band pulsed steadily, approving of her productivity, her focus. At 11 a.m., Celeste appeared in the hallway carrying a briefcase and her car keys. I'm leaving for Newark now, she announced to no one in particular. I'll be back late tonight. Marina, I trust you'll have that inventory report ready for me tomorrow morning? Yes, Ms. Harrow. Excellent. Celeste's eyes lingered on Marina's face for just a moment too long. Do be careful in the basement. The stairs are quite steep, and it would be terrible if you had an accident. Then she was gone, heels clicking across the marble, the front door closing with a soft thud. Marina waited until she heard Celeste's car leave the property. Then she waited another 10 minutes, just to be sure. The manor felt different with both Adrian and Celeste gone, emptier, colder, like a house holding its breath. She pulled the access card from her pocket and studied it. The smart thing would be to throw it away, to claim she'd lost it, to find any excuse not to go down to that basement. But Celeste had made it clear, refuse the task, lose the job. And losing the job meant losing everything she'd been working toward. Marina touched the band on her wrist. It pulsed once, reassuring. I'm here. I'm watching. You're not alone. Except she was alone. Completely and terribly alone. She walked to the basement door, swiped the access card, and heard the lock click open. The stairwell beyond was poorly lit, the concrete steps descending into shadows. Marina's hand found the railing, and she started down, each step taking her deeper into the isolated lower level of Blackthorn Manor. The band on her wrist pulsed steadily, tracking her descent, monitoring her increasing heart rate, recording every moment of her fear for Celeste to review later. Marina reached the bottom of the stairs and found herself in a long corridor lined with storage rooms. The air smelled like dust and old concrete. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the hum of mechanical systems, the building's hidden infrastructure. She tried the first door. Locked. The second door opened into a room full of cleaning supplies. Exactly what Celeste had said she'd find. Marina pulled out her phone and started taking inventory, her fingers clumsy on the screen. She was halfway through counting bottles of floor polish when the lights went out. Complete darkness. Marina's breath caught, and the band on her wrist vibrated 3 times, responding to her panic, preparing to shock her back into movement. She fumbled for her phone's flashlight, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The narrow beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but shelves and supplies and ordinary things that looked sinister in the shadows. Hello? Marina's voice echoed down the corridor. Is someone there? No answer. She backed toward the door, keeping the flashlight pointed ahead. The band vibrated again, more insistent. Move, get out, danger! Marina ran. She made it 3 steps before she heard the sound behind her. Heavy, deliberate footsteps on concrete. Someone else was down here. Someone who'd been waiting in the dark. Marina's phone slipped from her shaking hands, the flashlight beam spinning wildly before the device hit the floor and the screen went dark. Now there was nothing but blackness and the sound of footsteps getting closer, and her own ragged breathing and the band on her wrist pulsing frantically, shocked into panic by her terror. A hand grabbed her shoulder. Marina screamed, Easy, easy! Marina, it's me! It's Victor! The lights flickered back on, harsh fluorescent tubes buzzing to life overhead. Marina blinked against the sudden brightness, her vision adjusting to find Victor standing 2 feet away, both hands raised in a placating gesture. The head of security looked genuinely alarmed, his usually stoic face creased with concern. What the hell are you doing down here? His accent thickened when he was stressed. Russian, maybe Ukrainian. You almost gave me a heart attack. Marina's legs gave out. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold concrete floor, her chest heaving, the band on her wrist vibrating so frantically it felt like it might burn through her skin. Victor crouched beside her, careful to keep some distance. Breathe, he said quietly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. The lights? Marina gasped. They went out. Someone was... I thought... Circuit breaker tripped. Happens down here sometimes. Old wiring. Victor glanced at the band on her wrist, his expression darkening. That thing is going crazy. What's it doing to you? Monitoring. It monitors everything. Marina forced herself to breathe slower, to calm down before the band decided her panic warranted punishment. Ms. Harrow sent me down here to do inventory. She said the cameras weren't working. They're not. Haven't been for a month. Victor stood up and offered Marina his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took it, letting him pull her to her feet. Why would Celeste send you down here alone? That's not protocol. Inventory is a two-person job, minimum. She said I needed to prove I could handle responsibility. Victor's jaw tightened. She's setting you up. The blunt assessment hit Marina like cold water. What? Come on. You think I don't see what's happening? Victor picked up Marina's phone from where it had fallen and handed it back to her. The screen was cracked, but still functional. I've been working security for Adrian for 8 years. I've seen Celeste operate. She's careful, methodical, but she's not invisible. Marina's mind was racing, trying to process what Victor was saying, what it meant that someone else had noticed Celeste's patterns. The woman before me. Rosa. Do you know what happened to her? Victor's expression went carefully neutral. She left. Family emergency. That's what Celeste said. But you don't believe it. A long pause. Victor walked to the circuit breaker box on the wall and checked the switches, his movements deliberate. Rosa was a good worker, reliable. Then one day she started acting different, jumpy, exhausted, paranoid. She wore the same band you're wearing. I asked her about it once, told her it wasn't standard security equipment. She got terrified, begged me not to mention it to anyone. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Did you look for her? Try to find out where she went? I asked questions, made some calls. Victor closed the breaker box and turned back to Marina. Her family in Guatemala never heard from her. No phone calls, no wire transfers, nothing. It's like she vanished. The temperature in the basement seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marina wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly freezing. Why didn't you tell Adrian? I tried. Celeste had paperwork, resignation letter, exit interview, final paycheck receipt, all signed by Rosa. Everything looked legitimate. Adrian was dealing with a supply chain crisis at the time, some issue with shipments from Colombia. He trusted Celeste to handle household matters. Victor's expression was grim. By the time I pushed harder, too much time had passed. No evidence, no witnesses, just my gut feeling that something was wrong. And now I'm wearing Rosa's tracking device. Yeah. Marina leaned against the wall, trying to organize her thoughts through the haze of fear and exhaustion. Adrian knows about the band now. He confronted Celeste last night. He's having it removed today. Victor's eyebrows rose. He confronted her directly? About you specifically? He saw me collapse in the kitchen, saw the band shock me. He was... Marina paused, searching for the right word. Angry, really angry. That explains why Celeste looked like she wanted to murder someone this morning. Victor pulled out his own phone and scrolled through something. She left for Newark 40 minutes ago. Adrian's in the city until at least 3. That gives us a window. A window for what? To find proof. Victor met her eyes. Look, I'm security. My job is protecting Adrian and his interests. If Celeste is running some kind of side operation, stealing money, abusing staff, making people disappear, that's a threat to Adrian's operation. It makes him vulnerable. And I don't let threats go unchecked. Marina's wrist vibrated sharply. The band seemed agitated by the conversation, by Victor's presence. What kind of proof? Celeste has an office in the East Wing. She keeps it locked, but I have master access to every room in this manor. Victor checked his watch. We've got maybe 4 hours before either of them gets back. If there's evidence, financial records, employment documents, anything that connects her to Rosa's disappearance, it'll be in that office. If she catches us, she won't. She's in Newark doing an audit that I personally verified will take her at minimum 6 hours. I made sure of it. Victor's smile was sharp and humorless. I might not have been able to help Rosa, but I can help you, if you're willing to take the risk. Marina thought about the photograph she'd found in the library. Rosa's laughing face, frozen in a moment of happiness before everything went wrong. Thought about the $400 a week Celeste had been stealing, the shock collar disguised as security, the systematic destruction of her sense of self. Thought about Sophia, waiting in Mexico for a mother who might never come home. What do I need to do? Victor's office was a small room adjacent to the main security hub, lined with monitors showing camera feeds from around the estate. Marina watched herself on 3 different screens, walking through the kitchen, climbing the stairs, entering the East Wing hallway. The coverage was comprehensive, which made what Victor did next even more significant. He sat down at his computer and typed rapidly, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency. I'm creating a loop in the footage. Anyone checking the feeds will see normal activity, staff moving around, daily routines, nothing suspicious. But the actual recording will show empty hallways for the next 3 hours. You can do that? I designed this security system. Of course I can do that. Victor hit a final key, and the monitors flickered briefly before resuming their display. Celeste doesn't have access to these controls. She doesn't even know this capability exists. As far as she's concerned, if something happens while she's gone, the cameras will prove she wasn't here. Marina's band vibrated, a warning pulse. She was standing still, not working, deviating from her program routine. She forced herself to shift her weight, to move slightly, appeasing the device. Victor noticed. That thing is barbaric. How long have you been wearing it? 93 days. And it shocks you when you stop moving? When I stop? When I rest? When I sit down for too long? When my heart rate suggests I'm lying or anxious? Marina's voice was flat, reciting facts. It's supposed to help me stay productive, keep me safe. Victor muttered something in Russian that Marina suspected was profane. We're getting that off you today, whether Adrian's specialist arrives or not. I know people who can cut through electronic locks. Celeste said if I remove it, she'll have no way to monitor my safety. That if something happened to me, no one would be able to find me. That's bullshit. This entire estate has motion sensors, door logs, camera coverage. I can track every person in this building within 30 seconds. That band isn't for your safety. It's for your control. Victor stood up and grabbed a set of keys from his desk. Come on. We're wasting time. Celeste's office was at the far end of the east wing, a part of the manor Marina had only cleaned twice. The door was heavy oak with a digital lock. Victor swiped his MasterCard and it opened with a soft click. The room inside was precisely organized. Too organized, Marina thought. Every surface was clean, every document aligned, every object in its designated place. A large mahogany desk dominated the space, flanked by filing cabinets and a bookshelf filled with binders labeled by year and category. The window overlooked the gardens, but heavy curtains were drawn, keeping the space dim and private. You check the desk, Victor said. I'll take the filing cabinets. We're looking for anything related to Rosa Mendoza, employee contracts, financial discrepancies, tracking device documentation, anything that doesn't add up. Marina approached the desk carefully, hyper-aware that she was violating every rule Celeste had drilled into her. The band on her wrist pulsed irregularly, confused by her presence in an unauthorized area. She opened the top drawer and found it full of office supplies, pens, paper clips, sticky notes. Normal. Boring. The second drawer held files labeled with staff names. Marina flipped through them until she found her own. Inside was her original employment contract, and Victor had been right. It clearly stated $1,200 per week, plus benefits. But clipped to the contract was a second document, printed on different paper, showing $800 weekly, with a notation, corrected rate per verbal agreement with employee. There was no verbal agreement. Marina had never negotiated her salary down, but the document had her signature at the bottom, or something that looked like her signature, close enough that she couldn't immediately prove it was forged. Victor, she called softly. Look at this. He crossed the room and studied the papers, his expression darkening. She's creating a paper trail, making it look like you agreed to the lower salary, so if anyone questions the discrepancy, she can claim it was your choice. He took photos of both documents with his phone. What else is in there? Marina continued searching. Behind her employment file, she found 3 others. Women's names she didn't recognize, all with similar documentation. Original contracts showing one salary, amended agreements showing lower rates, signatures that might or might not be authentic. All of the women had Spanish surnames. She's been doing this for years, Marina whispered. How many people has she stolen from? At least 4 that we can see. Could be more. Victor was photographing everything, building a digital evidence file. Keep looking. We need to find Rosa's paperwork. Marina went through every file in the desk, but there was nothing with Rosa's name. No employment contract, no resignation letter, no exit interview. It was as if Rosa Mendoza had never worked at Blackthorn Manor at all. That's wrong, Victor muttered when Marina told him. We're legally required to keep employment records for 7 years. Even if she left voluntarily, there should be documentation. Unless Celeste destroyed it. Or unless Rosa never left voluntarily. The words hung in the air between them, ugly and unavoidable. Marina's hands were shaking as she opened the final desk drawer. Inside was a locked metal box, the kind used for securing important documents. She tried to open it, but the mechanism wouldn't budge. Victor examined the lock, then pulled a small toolkit from his pocket. This is a standard residential safe lock. Give me 2 minutes. While he worked, Marina moved to the filing cabinets. They were labeled by category: household expenses, staff schedules, maintenance records, vendor contracts. She pulled open the household expenses drawer and started flipping through files, looking for anything suspicious. She found it in a folder labeled miscellaneous purchases, invoice after invoice for equipment that made no sense: electronic monitoring devices, biometric tracking systems, wireless shock collars, the kind used for training dogs. Each invoice was marked as paid from the estate's operating account, and each one had Adrian's supposed signature authorizing the purchase. But Marina had seen Adrian's real signature on her employment contract. These were close, but not quite right. The loops were wrong, the pressure inconsistent. Celeste had been forging Adrian's authorization to buy the tools she used to torture her staff. Got it. Victor lifted the lid of the metal box. Inside were passports, 5 of them, all in different names. He opened the first one and swore under his breath. This is Rosa's passport. Why the hell would Celeste have Rosa's passport? Marina felt sick. You can't leave the country without your passport. Exactly. Victor photographed the passport, then the others. These are all women, all Hispanic, and all their passports are here, which means they never left. They never went home. Marina couldn't finish the sentence. The implications were too massive, too horrible. Victor was already on his phone, texting someone. I'm sending everything to Adrian right now. Photos of the contracts, the forged signatures, the passports, all of it. He needs to see this immediately. Marina's wrist suddenly erupted in violent vibration, the band pulsing with an intensity she'd never experienced before. She gasped, clutching her arm, waiting for the shock that always followed. But instead of electricity, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. I know you're in my office. I suggest you leave before you regret it. Marina's blood went cold. She showed the phone to Victor, whose expression shifted from anger to calculation. She's not in Newark. She never went to Newark. He strode to the window and pulled back the curtain, scanning the grounds. She was testing us, waiting to see if we'd take the bait. We need to get out of here. Marina was already moving toward the door, her survival instincts overriding everything else. Wait! Victor grabbed her arm, his grip firm but not painful. If Celeste is here, she's already blocked the exits. She's had hours to prepare for this. Running blind will get you caught. Then what do? We finish what we started. Victor turned back to the metal box and pulled out the remaining contents. A ledger book, handwritten, with columns of numbers and dates. He flipped through it quickly, his eyes widening. This is a payment log. She's been selling information about Adrian's operations, names of contacts, shipment schedules, security protocols. She's been running surveillance on him for someone else. Marina's phone buzzed again. You're fired, Marina. Collect your things and leave immediately. If you're still on the property in 1 hour, I'll call immigration. She can't fire you, Victor said, reading over Marina's shoulder. Only Adrian can terminate staff. This is intimidation. It's working. Marina's entire body was shaking now, the band vibrating in rhythm with her panic. Victor, I can't do this. If she reports me, if she makes one call, she's not going to call anyone. She's exposed, and she knows it. Victor was still photographing pages from the ledger, working quickly. We have evidence of theft, forgery, identity fraud, and espionage. Celeste is done. She just doesn't realize it yet. The lights in the office went out. Not a flicker this time, not a gradual dimming, just instant, complete darkness. Marina's hand found Victor's arm in the blackness, her grip desperate. The circuit breakers, she whispered. No, this is building-wide. She's cut the main power. Victor's voice was calm, professional. Stay close to me. I know this house in the dark. They moved through the office by feel, Victor guiding Marina around furniture. He pulled the door open, and the hallway beyond was equally dark, lit only by the weak emergency lights near the floor. The silence was oppressive, broken only by their footsteps and Marina's ragged breathing. "Security hub," Victor said quietly. "That's where she'll expect us to go, so we're not going there." "Where then?" "Adrian's private office. Second floor, west wing. It has a separate phone line, independent of the estate's main system, and more importantly, it has a panic room." They climbed the stairs in darkness, Marina's hand gripping the railing, the band on her wrist pulsing frantically. Every shadow looked like Celeste, every sound like footsteps. Marina's mind kept circling back to the passports in the metal box, to Rosa's laughing face in the photograph, to the sick realization that she'd been living in a house where people disappeared. They reached the second-floor landing. Victor paused, listening. Somewhere below, a door opened and closed. Footsteps on marble. "She's in the main hall," Victor breathed. "Move, quickly." They ran down the west wing corridor, their footsteps muffled by carpet. Adrian's office was at the end, behind a door that looked identical to every other door, but was reinforced steel beneath the decorative wood veneer. Victor swiped his access card, and the lock disengaged with a heavy click. Inside, Victor locked the door behind them and immediately moved to the desk, picking up the landline phone. He dialed, waited, then spoke rapidly. "It's Victor. We have a situation at the manor. Celeste Harrow has been compromised. I'm sending evidence to your phone right now. I need you back here immediately, and bring police. Real police. Not anyone on your payroll." A pause. "She's already on the property. We're locked in your office. Just get here." He hung up and turned to Marina. "Adrian's 20 minutes out. Police are 30 minutes minimum. We just need to stay secure until they arrive." Marina nodded, but her attention was fixed on the door. She could hear footsteps in the hallway now, slow and deliberate. Then Celeste's voice, muffled but clear. "Marina, I know you're frightened. I know Victor has been filling your head with terrible stories about me. But you need to understand, I'm trying to protect you. That band on your wrist, it's connected to the estate's security system. If you don't come out, if you continue hiding in there, I'll have no choice but to trigger a full lockdown protocol. Do you understand what that means?" Victor's expression went rigid. "She's bluffing. There's no lockdown protocol connected to your band." "Are you sure?" Marina's voice was barely audible. "Yes, that's not how the system—" Marina's wrist exploded with pain. The shock was different this time, sustained and brutal, electricity coursing through her arm and into her chest. She collapsed, biting down on her own hand to keep from screaming, her body convulsing. "Make it stop," she gasped. "Please, make it stop." Victor was at her side immediately, examining the band, looking for a release mechanism. "I can't. There's no manual override. It's controlled remotely. She's doing this." "Marina, come out," Celeste called. "Come out and I'll make it stop. We can talk about this. We can fix this. But you need to trust me." The shock continued, relentless. Marina's vision was going white at the edges, her muscles locked rigid. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but endure. This was it. This was how Celeste won. This was how she'd always won, by making the pain so unbearable that surrender seemed like salvation. Victor pulled a multi-tool from his pocket and grabbed Marina's wrist. "Hold still. This is going to hurt." He jammed the edge of the tool into the seam of the band, trying to pry it open. The metal dug into Marina's skin, adding fresh pain on top of the electrical current, but she didn't care. Anything was better than this. Anything. "Almost got it," Victor grunted with effort, levering the tool with both hands. Something in the band cracked. The shock stopped. Marina sucked in air, her body shaking with aftershocks. Victor worked the tool deeper into the broken seam, twisting it, applying pressure. The band's casing fractured, circuits sparking. He pulled the device apart, the two halves separating with a snap of breaking plastic and metal. The band fell away from Marina's wrist, dead and smoking. She stared at the pale strip of skin where it had been, marked with burn scars and pressure bruises. 3 months of constant monitoring, constant punishment, constant control. And now it was just broken pieces on Adrian's office floor. "You destroyed it," Marina whispered. "Yeah." Victor threw the remains into Adrian's trash can. "How do you feel?" Marina flexed her wrist experimentally. The absence of the band's weight felt wrong, like missing a limb. But underneath the disorientation was something else, something she'd almost forgotten the shape of: freedom. I feel... She couldn't find the words. Strange. I feel strange. The door handle rattled. Celeste was trying to get in, but the reinforced lock held. Marina, you're making a terrible mistake. Without that band, I can't protect you. You have no idea what kind of danger you're in? Victor moved to the bookshelf and pressed a hidden panel. A section of the wall swung inward, revealing a small, fortified room. Adrian's panic room. Get in. Lock it behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Adrian or me. What about you? I'm going to have a conversation with Celeste. Victor's smile was cold. She's been operating in my security zone for years, stealing from my employer, threatening my staff. I've been very patient, but patience has limits. Victor, she's dangerous. So am I. He handed Marina his phone. If anything happens to me, the evidence is already sent to Adrian. It's also backed up to 3 separate secure servers. Even if Celeste destroys every computer in this manner, the truth is already out there. He gently pushed Marina toward the panic room. Now go. Lock the door. Marina stepped into the small space. It was equipped with a phone, a monitor showing security feeds, bottled water, and a first aid kit. Everything someone would need to wait out a crisis. She turned back to Victor, wanting to thank him, to tell him he was wrong about not helping Rosa because he was helping now, helping her. But he'd already closed the bookshelf panel, sealing her inside. Through the monitor, Marina watched Victor unlock Adrian's office door and step into the hallway. Celeste stood there, perfectly composed, her expression pleasant despite the situation. They spoke, but the monitor had no audio. Marina could only watch as Victor gestured, clearly explaining something, his posture aggressive. Celeste listened, her head tilted slightly, and then she smiled. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a gun. Marina's hands flew to her mouth, stifling the scream. On the monitor, Victor froze, his hands rising slowly. Celeste said something, and Victor shook his head. She said something else, more emphatic. Victor took a step back toward the office. Celeste shot him. The gun had a silencer, so Marina heard nothing through the panic room walls. But she saw Victor crumple, saw the blood spreading across his shirt, saw Celeste step over his body and enter Adrian's office. Marina backed away from the monitor, her mind refusing to process what she'd just witnessed. Victor was shot. Victor was bleeding. Victor might be dead because he tried to help her. She grabbed the phone in the panic room and dialed the emergency number Victor had mentioned. Police. I need police at Blackthorn Manor. Someone's been shot. There's a woman with a gun. She's... Ma'am, we already have units en route to that location. They'll be there in approximately 15 minutes. Can you tell me your current location in the building? I'm in a panic room. I'm locked in. But there's a man in the hallway. He's been shot. He needs help. Help is coming. Stay where you are. Don't open the door for anyone. Marina hung up and returned to the monitor. On the screen, Celeste was searching Adrian's office systematically, pulling open drawers, checking behind furniture, looking for the panic room entrance. It took her less than 3 minutes to find it. Celeste approached the bookshelf, ran her hands along the edges, found the hidden panel. She pressed it, and the door swung open. Through the monitor, Marina could see her standing at the panic room entrance, gun in hand, her expression still pleasant. Marina, we need to talk. Marina didn't respond. The panic room door was solid steel, impossible to break through. But it wasn't soundproof. She could hear Celeste perfectly, and Celeste could hear her. I know you're frightened. I know Victor told you terrible things about me. But you need to understand the full picture. Celeste's voice was patient, almost motherly. I've been protecting you. The band, the monitoring, the strict schedules, all of it was designed to keep you safe. You're an immigrant worker in a crime lord's estate. Do you have any idea how vulnerable that makes you? You stole from me. You tortured me. You have 5 women's passports in your office. I kept their passports for safekeeping. Immigration documentation is valuable. It needs to be secured. Celeste sighed. Those women left, Marina. They went home to their families. The passports were an oversight, nothing more. Then why did Rosa's family never hear from her? A pause. Who told you that? Does it matter? Victor's been filling your head with conspiracy theories. He's paranoid, always has been, sees threats everywhere. Celeste's tone shifted slightly, developing an edge. But here's what you're not understanding, Marina. I've been managing this estate for 6 years. I've learned things about Adrian Moretti that would destroy him. I've documented his operations, his contacts, his illegal activities, and I've been very careful about where that information goes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Marina understood perfectly. Celeste was threatening to expose Adrian unless Marina cooperated. Adrian already knows what you've done, Marina said. Victor sent him everything, the forged contracts, the stolen money, the surveillance logs. It's over, Celeste. Nothing is over until I say it's over. Celeste's pleasant mask finally cracked, revealing the rage underneath. You think you can ruin me? You think some housemaid from Mexico and a paranoid security guard can destroy everything I've built? I made this estate run. I made Adrian Moretti's life possible. And this is how he repays me? By believing your lies? They're not lies. You know they're not lies. What I know is that you're trapped in that room, and when the police arrive, I'll tell them I found you stealing from Adrian's office. Victor tried to stop you, and you shot him. The gun will have your fingerprints on it. The evidence will be irrefutable. And who do you think they'll believe? A respected estate manager or an illegal immigrant with a work visa she obtained through fraud? Marina's visa wasn't fraudulent, but the accusation still hit like a physical blow. You can't, I can, and I will. Unless you open this door right now and we end this reasonably. I'll say Victor broke in, that he'd been embezzling funds. You're the innocent victim who bravely called the police. We'll both walk away from this. In the background, Marina heard sirens. The police were getting closer. So was Adrian. Time was running out for Celeste, and desperate people made catastrophic decisions. I'm not opening the door, Marina said quietly. Then you're choosing to destroy your life. Your daughter will grow up without a mother. Your family will lose the money you've been sending. Everything you've worked for will be gone. Is that really what you want? Marina thought about Sophia, about the butterfly costume her mother had sewn for her birthday, about the video calls where her daughter would press her small hand against the phone screen and ask when Mama was coming home. Thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago, hopeful, determined, willing to endure anything for her child's future. Celeste had tried to break that woman, had almost succeeded, but almost wasn't enough. My daughter will grow up knowing her mother fought back, Marina said, that she stood up to someone who tried to make her disappear, that she didn't let fear turn her into something small and silent. That's the mother I want to be. The sirens were loud now, multiple vehicles pulling up to the manor. Marina heard voices outside, saw flashlight beams through the panic room's small ventilation grate. Celeste heard them too. This isn't over, she hissed. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started, no idea who I work for, what they'll do to protect their investment. You should have stayed invisible, Marina. Invisible people survive. Then her footsteps retreated, moving fast. On the monitor, Marina watched Celeste run from Adrian's office, stepping over Victor's body without a glance. She disappeared down the hallway, heading toward the service stairs. Marina pressed the intercom button connecting the panic room to the security system. She's running. Celeste Harrow is running toward the East Wing service stairs. She has a gun. She shot Victor Sokolov. He's in the second-floor West Wing hallway, bleeding. He needs medical attention immediately. The response was instant. Police radio chatter, officers coordinating, footsteps pounding through the manor. Marina stayed glued to the monitor, watching multiple screens as police flooded the building. They found Victor first, and relief crashed over Marina as she saw him move, saw officers applying pressure to his wound, calling for an ambulance. He was alive. Hurt, but alive. On another screen, Celeste reached the ground floor and ran toward the gardens. But the police had surrounded the estate. There was nowhere to go. They cornered her near the fountain, weapons drawn, commands being shouted. Celeste raised her hands slowly, the gun dangling from one finger before she let it drop to the ground. Even in surrender, she was calculating, already building her defense. Marina's phone rang. Adrian's name on the screen. Marina, are you safe? Are you hurt? I'm in the panic room. I'm okay. But Victor? I know. Paramedics are with him now. He's conscious, stable. He's going to be fine. Adrian's voice was strained, raw with emotion she'd never heard from him before. I'm pulling up now. Don't open the panic room door until I come get you personally. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Marina, he paused. I'm sorry. I should have seen what she was doing, should have stopped this before it got this far. This is my fault. It's not. You didn't know. I should have known. It happened in my house, to my staff, under my protection. That makes it my responsibility. He exhaled. I'll be there in 2 minutes. Just hold on. He hung up. Marina sat on the floor of the panic room, her wrist bare, her body exhausted, her mind still processing everything that had happened in the past hour. Victor shot. Celeste arrested. The truth finally dragged into light. She should have felt relief, should have felt safe. Instead, she felt hollow, because she kept thinking about Celeste's final words. You have no idea who I work for, what they'll do to protect their investment. This wasn't over. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but there was something larger at play, something Celeste had been part of. And whatever it was, Marina had just made herself a target by refusing to disappear. A knock on the panic room door. Marina, it's Adrian. I'm opening the door now. The steel door swung inward, and Adrian stood there, his suit rumpled, his face pale. Behind him, the office was full of police officers and crime scene technicians. He extended his hand toward her. Come on, let's get you out of here. Marina took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Her legs were shaky, unreliable. Adrian steadied her, his grip firm. Can you walk? I think so. They moved through the office, past the blood on the carpet where Victor had fallen, past the police officers documenting everything. In the hallway, paramedics were loading Victor onto a stretcher. He saw Marina and raised one hand in a weak thumbs up. She tried to smile back, but her face wouldn't cooperate. Adrian guided her down the stairs and into his personal study, away from the chaos. He closed the door, muffling the noise from the rest of the manor. Then he turned to face her, and Marina saw something in his expression that looked almost like shame. I owe you an apology that no words can adequately express, he said quietly. You came here for safety and work, and I let you be tortured in my own home. There's no excuse for that. None. You didn't know. I should have known. I make it my business to know everything that happens in my organization, but I was distracted, focused on external threats, and I missed the one operating right under my roof. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. Victor says Celeste was selling information about my operations, that she's been working for someone else. She said I didn't know what I'd started, that the people she works for would come after me. Adrian's expression hardened. No one is coming after you. You're under my protection now, and that's not negotiable. Anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me first. Marina wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Adrian Moretti's power was enough to keep her safe. But she'd spent 3 months learning that powerful people could destroy you in quiet ways, with smiles and documentation and devices locked around your wrist. What happens now? She asked. Now? The police interview everyone, collect evidence, build their case against Celeste. She'll be charged with assault, attempted murder, fraud, theft, and whatever else they can make stick. Adrian moved to his desk and pulled out a file folder. But there's something you need to understand about the legal system. Celeste has money, connections, and 6 years' worth of carefully documented paperwork that makes her look like the perfect employee. She'll hire expensive lawyers. She'll claim Victor attacked her, that you were stealing, that everything she did was justified self-defense or proper security protocol. So she'll get away with it. Not if I have anything to say about it, but the legal process takes time, months, probably years. And during that time, you're a witness, a target for anyone who wants to make sure your testimony never reaches a courtroom. Marina's stomach sank. You're saying I'm not safe here. I'm saying you need options, protection, resources. Adrian opened the folder and pulled out several documents. This is the money Celeste stole from you. $4,800. I've already arranged for it to be returned. This is your actual employment contract, the legitimate one, with back pay for the difference between what you should have been earning and what you actually received. And this, he pulled out a cashier's check, is 3 months severance pay plus compensation for what you endured. It's not enough. Nothing would be enough. But it's something. Marina stared at the check. $36,000. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, and you will, because you earned it. Adrian's voice was firm. But there's more.
I've also arranged for a lawyer, my personal attorney, not someone from my organization, to handle your case if you decide to press charges. He'll work on contingency, no upfront costs.
And if you want to leave, if you want to go back to Mexico or anywhere else, I'll arrange secure transportation and help you relocate. No strings, no obligations. You've been through enough. The choice is entirely yours. Marina's mind was spinning. Why? Why would you do all this? Because it's the right thing to do. And because Adrian hesitated, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncomfortable. Because my empire is built on loyalty. People follow me because they believe I protect what's mine. If I let Celeste do this to you without consequence, what does that say about me? What does that say about my word? It was a crime lord's reasoning, reputation and power, control and fear. But underneath it, Marina heard something else. Guilt. And maybe, just maybe, genuine remorse. I need time to think, she said finally. Take all the time you need. You can stay here tonight. There's a guest room on the 3rd floor that's been secured. Or if you'd prefer, I can arrange for a hotel. Whatever makes you feel safest. The guest room is fine. Adrian nodded and moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The specialist I mentioned, the one who was supposed to remove your tracking band. He's still coming. I want him to examine your wrist, make sure there's no permanent damage. And I want documentation of every injury Celeste caused. If she tries to claim self-defense, I want irrefutable medical evidence that she's lying. Okay. After Adrian left, Marina sat alone in the study, staring at the documents and the checks spread across the desk. Through the window, she could see police cars in the driveway, their lights still flashing. Somewhere in one of those vehicles, Celeste was handcuffed and contained, caught, stopped, but not defeated. Not yet. People like Celeste always had contingency plans, always had escape routes. And Marina had just made herself the most important witness in whatever case the prosecutors would build. She touched her bare wrist, feeling the absence of the band like phantom pain. For 3 months, that device had controlled her every movement, her every decision. And now it was gone, broken, and discarded in Adrian Moretti's trash can. But freedom, Marina was learning, came with its own kind of weight, because now she had to decide what to do with it. Whether to stay and fight, to run and hide, or to find some third option she hadn't imagined yet. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Sophia made you a drawing. She wants to send it to you. Marina smiled despite everything. Send it, she texted back. Seconds later, a photo arrived. A crayon drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands. One tall, one small. Above them, Sophia had written in careful letters, "Me and Mama." Marina saved the image and held the phone against her chest. This was what it was all for. This was why she'd survived Celeste's torture. Why she'd stood in the panic room and refused to surrender. Why she'd chosen to be visible even when invisible would have been safer. Because somewhere in Mexico, a 6-year-old girl was drawing pictures and waiting for her mother to come home. And Marina was going to make sure she made it back to her, no matter what it took, no matter what came next. She was done disappearing. The specialist arrived at 8 the next morning. A thin man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and a medical kit that looked like it belonged in a forensics lab. His name was Dr. Brennan, and he examined Marina's wrist with the detached precision of someone who'd seen worse things and learned not to react. 3rd-degree burns here and here, he said, marking notes on a tablet. Pressure necrosis along the contact points. Nerve damage. Can you feel this? He pressed a small instrument against Marina's palm. Barely. That'll improve with time, but probably not completely. You'll have reduced sensation in your fingertips permanently. He photographed the injuries from multiple angles, his camera flash making Marina flinch. How often did the device deliver electrical shocks? I don't know. I stopped counting. Estimate. Marina closed her eyes, trying to calculate. Maybe 30 times? 40? And the longest duration of a single shock? She thought back to yesterday in the panic room when Celeste had triggered the sustained pulse. 2 minutes. Maybe longer. It felt like forever. Dr. Brennan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm going to write a full medical report documenting these injuries. It'll be admissible in court, and it'll be very difficult for any defense attorney to argue these were caused by anything other than prolonged torture. He set down his tablet and met Marina's eyes. I need you to understand something. What was done to you constitutes a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. If Celeste Harrow had done this to a prisoner of war, she'd be facing charges in The Hague. The fact that she did it to an employee in a private residence doesn't make it less severe. It makes it more disturbing. Will it be enough to convict her? That's not my area, but from a medical standpoint, the evidence is irrefutable. He pulled a tube of prescription cream from his kit and handed it to her. Apply this twice daily. It'll help with the scarring and the nerve regeneration. And Marina? You need to see a therapist. What you've been through, the psychological impact, doesn't heal as quickly as the physical wounds. Sometimes it doesn't heal at all without help. After he left, Marina sat in the guest room Adrian had provided and stared at her bandaged wrist. The room was beautiful. High ceilings, expensive furniture, windows overlooking the gardens where spring flowers were starting to bloom. It felt like a hotel, impersonal and temporary. She'd slept maybe 3 hours, startling awake every time the house settled, every time a car passed on the road outside. Her phone rang, Adrian's name. How are you feeling? Tired. It was the truest answer Marina could give. Dr. Brennan said the nerve damage might be permanent. I'm sorry. Adrian paused, and Marina heard voices in the background, someone asking him a question. I'm at the hospital. Victor's out of surgery. The bullet missed his heart by 2 inches, but they're saying he'll make a full recovery. He's asking to see you. Me? He says he needs to apologize for not protecting you better. Adrian's voice softened. He's taking this very hard, blaming himself for Rosa, for the other women. I told him he's an idiot, but you know Victor, stubborn. Marina found herself almost smiling. I'll come see him. Just give me an hour to get ready. Take your time. I'll have a car waiting whenever you're ready. Marina showered for the first time in what felt like weeks, letting hot water wash away 3 months of accumulated fear and dirt. Without the band monitoring her movements, she could stand under the spray as long as she wanted, could sit on the shower floor when her legs got tired, could exist without constant surveillance. It should have felt liberating. Instead, it felt wrong. Her body kept expecting punishment for stillness, for rest, for taking up space. She dressed in clothes Adrian had provided, simple jeans and a sweater that fit reasonably well, and found breakfast waiting outside her door. Real food, more than she could possibly eat. Marina forced herself to finish half of it, her stomach protesting after months of near-starvation rations. The car took her to a private hospital in the city, the kind of place where politicians and celebrities went for discreet medical care. Adrian met her in the lobby, looking exhausted. He'd changed clothes but hadn't shaved, and there were dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept at all. Before we go up, he said, I need to tell you something. The police searched Celeste's apartment last night. They found documentation connecting her to an organization called the Kovalenko Group. You heard of them? Marina shook her head. They're a trafficking network, mostly Eastern European operation, but they've been expanding into the Americas. They recruit vulnerable women, immigrants, people without documentation, anyone who won't be missed, and they exploit them. Labor trafficking, mostly. Domestic workers, factory employees. They place them in wealthy households and skim their wages, sometimes taking 70 or 80%. The tracking devices keep the women compliant. Marina's stomach turned. How many women? Across the entire network, hundreds, probably more. The FBI's been trying to infiltrate them for 2 years. Adrian looked at her carefully. Celeste was one of their recruiters. She'd identify suitable households, wealthy, private, run by people who valued discretion over scrutiny, and she'd place women there. She was taking a commission on every placement, plus a percentage of the stolen wages. So I was, what, a product? Merchandise? You were a victim of a sophisticated criminal enterprise. And now you're a witness who can testify about their methods, their systems, the evidence Celeste kept. Adrian's expression was grim. The FBI wants to talk to you. They've been very polite about it so far, but that won't last. They need your testimony to build a case against the Kovalenko Group's leadership. Marina felt the weight of it settling on her shoulders. And if I refuse? They can't force you to testify. But without your testimony, Celeste might walk. Her lawyers are already arguing that she was trying to protect you from immigration violations, that the tracking band was a medical monitoring device you consented to wear, that everything was a misunderstanding. Adrian's voice hardened. They're painting you as an unreliable witness, an illegal immigrant who fabricated abuse claims to avoid deportation. My visa is legitimate. I know, but juries don't always care about facts when a good story is available. Celeste's defense team will try to make this about your credibility versus hers. And she has 6 years of glowing performance reviews, Adrian Moretti's supposed signature on equipment purchases, and carefully forged documents that make her look like a model employee. Marina closed her eyes. So I testify, or she wins. Essentially, yes. And if I testify, the Kovalenko group comes after me because I'm exposing their entire operation. The FBI will offer you witness protection, new identity, relocation, security detail. They take care of their witnesses. Adrian paused. But it means leaving everything behind. Your name, your history, your family. Marina's chest tightened. I can't. Sophia, I have a daughter. I can't just disappear from her life. I know. That's why I'm offering you an alternative. Adrian pulled a folder from his briefcase and handed it to her. This is a comprehensive security plan. You testify, but you stay visible. We upgrade security at your mother's house in Mexico, provide round-the-clock protection for Sophia, and set up a secure location where you can live under surveillance until the trial is over. It's not witness protection, but it's better than going it alone. Marina opened the folder. Inside were detailed proposals, cost estimates, photographs of security equipment. Why would you do this? Why would you spend this kind of money on someone you barely know? Because Celeste operated in my house, under my authority, and I didn't stop her. That makes me complicit. Adrian met her eyes. And because I'm tired of women disappearing. Rosa, the others, they vanished because no one with power gave a damn about them. I'm trying to give a damn now, even if it's too late to help them. Maybe it's not too late to help you. Marina wanted to believe his motives were pure, but she'd learned the hard way that powerful men always had agendas. What do you get out of this? Really? Adrian smiled without humor. The satisfaction of destroying the Kovalenko group. They've been moving into my territory, interfering with my operations, and using my estate as cover for their trafficking network. I don't like being used, and I especially don't like being made to look like a fool. He closed the folder. So yes, I have selfish reasons, but that doesn't make the protection any less real. They took the elevator to the 4th floor. Victor's room was at the end of the hall, guarded by one of Adrian's security team. Inside, Victor lay propped up in bed, his chest wrapped in bandages, an IV line running into his arm. He looked pale and diminished, but his eyes were sharp when they landed on Marina. You look terrible, he said. You were shot. I think you win. Victor managed a weak smile. Fair point. He gestured at the chair beside his bed. Sit, please. I need to say something, and it's easier if you're sitting. Marina sat. Adrian remained by the door, giving them space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. I should have helped Rosa, Victor said bluntly. I suspected something was wrong. I asked questions, but I didn't push hard enough. Didn't make Adrian listen. Didn't risk my job to protect someone I barely knew. He looked at his hands, clenched on the white hospital sheets. And then you showed up wearing the same tracking band, and I told myself I'd do better this time, that I'd make up for failing her, but I almost got you killed. You saved my life. You broke the band off my wrist. You sent evidence to Adrian. You stood between me and Celeste when she had a gun. And got shot for my trouble. Real impressive. Victor, let me finish. He met her eyes. I've spent 8 years working for Adrian Moretti. I've done things I'm not proud of. Looked the other way when I should have asked questions. Enforced rules that hurt people. I told myself it was just business, just orders, just the way things work in this world. But watching what Celeste did to you, watching you endure that hell because no one stopped her, it made me realize I can't hide behind orders anymore. Can't pretend I'm just following protocol when I see something wrong. Marina didn't know what to say. Victor's guilt was palpable, heavy enough to fill the room. The FBI wants to interview me, he continued, about Celeste, about the estate operations, about anything I've witnessed over the past 8 years. My lawyer says I should refuse, claim Fifth Amendment protection, but I'm going to talk. I'm going to tell them everything I know about Celeste's network, about how she operated, about the other women I saw who might have been victims. He looked at Adrian. Even if that means implicating people in this room. Adrian's expression didn't change. Do what you need to do. You're not going to stop me? Why would I? You think I'm going to intimidate a witness to protect myself? I'm a lot of things, Victor, but I'm not that. Adrian crossed his arms. Besides, the FBI's had a file on me for 20 years. Whatever you tell them, they probably already know. Or they've got a creative interpretation that's worse than reality. Victor nodded slowly. Then I'll tell them the truth. All of it. Good. Adrian's voice was firm. The truth is the only way this ends right. After they left the hospital, Adrian drove Marina back to the manor himself. She watched the city give way to suburbs, then to the rural roads leading to Blackthorn. Everything looked different now. The gates weren't security, they were a cage. The beautiful grounds weren't peaceful, they were isolated. The manor itself wasn't a home, it was a crime scene. I can't go back in there, Marina said as they pulled up to the entrance. I'm sorry. I know you've arranged the guest room, but I can't breathe in that house. Adrian put the car in park. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Somewhere that doesn't have Celeste's presence in every room. Somewhere that doesn't smell like fear. Okay. Adrian made a phone call, spoke briefly, then hung up. I have a safe house in the city. It's where I send people who need to disappear for a while. It's secure, comfortable, and completely separate from my main operations. You can stay there as long as you need. What about my things, my clothes, my phone charger? I'll have Diana pack everything and bring it to you. You don't need to go back inside. Adrian pulled back onto the road. And Marina, when you're ready to make decisions about the FBI, about testifying, about what comes next, take your time. Don't let anyone rush you. Not the prosecutors, not the agents, not me. You've spent 3 months being controlled. You get to decide your own timeline now. The safe house was a brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that looked like every other building on the block. Inside, it was spartanly furnished but clean. A living room, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and bars on the windows that Adrian assured her were for keeping people out, not keeping people in. The security system is monitored 24/7, he explained, showing her the control panel. You have panic buttons in every room. And there's a guard outside in a parked car rotating shifts. You won't see him unless you need him, but he's there. Marina walked through the space, touching furniture, opening cabinets. Everything was impersonal, temporary, perfect for someone who needed to not exist for a while. Thank you, she said finally. Adrian handed her a key. I'll check in tomorrow. If you need anything before then, call me. Anytime, day or night. After he left, Marina sat on the couch and stared at her bandaged wrist. Dr. Brennan had said the nerve damage was permanent, that she'd carry these scars for the rest of her life. Physical evidence of what Celeste had done, what the Kovalenko group had done, what happens when people decide other people are disposable. Her phone rang. The FBI. Marina stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. Hello? Ms. Valez, this is Special Agent Rebecca Chen. I'm with the FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force. I was hoping we could meet to discuss your experience at Blackthorn Manor. Mr. Moretti said you'd be calling. I'm sure he did. Mr. Moretti has been very cooperative with our investigation, but I need to hear your story directly from you in your own words. Would you be willing to come to our office for an interview? Or if you're more comfortable, I can come to you. Marina thought about the folder Adrian had shown her, about the cost of protection, about the alternative of witness protection and vanishing from Sophia's life. If I testify, what happens to me? After the trial? That depends on the level of threat. If we determine that the Kovalenko group poses a significant danger, we can offer witness protection, new identity, relocation, financial support, while you get established in a new location. And my daughter? She's 6 years old, living in Mexico with my mother. A pause. Family members can be included in witness protection, but it requires everyone to commit to the program. New identities for all of you. No contact with anyone from your previous life. It's not an easy decision. And if I refuse protection, if I testify but stay visible, then you'd be taking a significant risk. The Kovalenko group doesn't tolerate witnesses. They have a long reach and substantial resources. Agent Chen's voice softened slightly. But I understand wanting to maintain your life, your identity. It's not my place to tell you what to choose. I just need you to understand the stakes. Marina closed her eyes. When do you need my answer? The preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. If you're going to testify, we need to start preparing your statement immediately. But Ms. Marina, I want you to know that what you've been through, what you survived, it takes incredible courage. And whatever you decide about testifying, that courage doesn't diminish. After the call ended, Marina sat in the silent safe house and tried to imagine her future. In one version, she became someone new, a different name, a different history, a different life. Sophia would grow up not knowing her real mother's name, not understanding where they came from or why they had to hide. They'd be safe, but they'd be ghosts. In the other version, Marina stayed herself, testified in open court, put her face and name on record as the woman who'd exposed the Kovalenko Group's operations. She'd be visible, vulnerable, and watched. But Sophia would know her mother fought back, would understand that some things were worth the risk. Neither option felt right. Both felt impossible. Marina pulled out her phone and called her mother. It was late afternoon in Mexico, and her mother answered on the second ring. "Marina, we've been so worried. Your last message said there was trouble at work." "I'm okay, Mama. I'm safe. But I need to talk to you about something important." Marina took a deep breath. "Can you put Sophia on the phone?" There was a moment of muffled conversation, then her daughter's voice, bright and clear. "Mama, when are you coming home?" "Soon, baby, very soon. But first I need to ask you something. Do you remember the story I told you about the butterfly? How it has to break out of the cocoon, and it's hard work, and it hurts, but that's how it gets strong enough to fly." "Yes. And then it has pretty wings." "That's right. Well, Mama is kind of like that butterfly right now. I'm breaking out of something that was keeping me trapped. And it's hard, and it hurts. But I'm doing it so I can come home to you, so we can both fly. Does that make sense?" "Are you sad, Mama?" Marina's throat tightened. "A little bit, but I'm also brave, just like you." "I'm very brave. Abuela says I'm the bravest." "You are. And I need you to be brave a little bit longer while Mama finishes breaking out of the cocoon. Can you do that for me?" "Okay, but hurry, Mama. I miss you." "I miss you too, baby, more than anything in the whole world." After she hung up, Marina sat with her phone pressed against her chest and let herself cry for the first time since the band had come off. She cried for the 3 months she'd lost, for Rosa and the other women who'd disappeared, for Victor bleeding in a hallway, for every moment of fear and pain and systematic degradation Celeste had inflicted. And then she stopped crying, wiped her face, and made her decision. She called Agent Chen back. "I'll testify, but I'm not going into witness protection. I'm staying visible." "Ms. Velez, I need to make sure you understand. I understand perfectly. The Kovalenko Group will consider me a threat. They'll want me silenced. But if I disappear, if I hide, then Celeste wins. Then everyone who's ever hurt someone like me wins. I'm done hiding." Agent Chen was quiet for a moment. "Okay, then we'll do everything in our power to keep you safe while you're visible. But Marina, this is going to get harder before it gets easier. The defense attorneys will try to destroy your credibility. They'll dig into your life, your history, your immigration status. They'll make you look unreliable, unstable, desperate. Are you prepared for that?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." That's the bravest answer I've ever heard. Over the next 2 weeks, Marina lived in the safe house and prepared for trial. Agent Chen visited daily, walking her through testimony procedures, potential defense strategies, courtroom protocol. Adrian sent updates about Celeste's legal team, expensive lawyers from Manhattan, former prosecutors who knew every loophole, investigators digging into Marina's background looking for ammunition. They found some. An unpaid parking ticket from 3 years ago. A friend in California who'd let Marina stay on her couch when she first arrived in the United States, before her work visa was approved. Small things, normal things, that Celeste's lawyers would try to spin into evidence of bad character. Diana came by one afternoon with Marina's belongings from the manor. She looked nervous, uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure what to say. "I didn't know," she said finally, "about the band, about what Celeste was doing to you. I don't know what I thought, that you were just quiet, that you liked working alone. It's not your fault. I should have noticed, should have asked questions, but it was easier not to look too closely, you know? Easier to assume everything was fine." Diana set down the box she was carrying. For what it's worth, the entire staff is testifying. We're all going to court to say what we witnessed, what we should have seen. Patricia remembered Celeste yelling at you once in the kitchen. Marco saw you working at midnight when you should have been off shift. Even James admitted he thought it was weird that you never ate with us, never took breaks. Will it matter? In court? I don't know. But we're going to try. Diana hesitated at the door. And Marina? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry we didn't protect you. After she left, Marina unpacked her belongings. Not much. Some clothes, toiletries, the photograph of Sophia she kept beside her bed. Everything she owned fit in 2 boxes. 3 months at Blackthorn Manor, and this was all she had to show for it. No, that wasn't true. She also had scars, testimony, evidence, and a choice she'd made to stand up rather than disappear. That had to count for something. The preliminary hearing happened on a Tuesday. Marina wore the most professional outfit she owned, dark pants, a white blouse, shoes that Diana had helped her pick out. Agent Chen met her outside the courthouse, along with 2 federal marshals who'd been assigned as her security detail. Remember, Agent Chen said, this is just preliminary. The judge decides if there's enough evidence to proceed to trial. You'll testify briefly, and then Celeste's lawyers will try to discredit you. Stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't let them provoke you into anger. That's what they want. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than Marina had expected. Celeste sat at the defense table wearing an expensive suit, her hair perfect, her expression composed. She looked like a successful professional woman, not someone who tortured employees and shot a man in cold blood. When her eyes met Marina's, she smiled slightly. Marina looked away first, hating herself for the weakness. The prosecutor called her to the stand. Marina placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Her voice shook on the final words. The questioning started gently. Her name, her background, how she'd come to work at Blackthorn Manor. Marina answered carefully, sticking to the script Agent Chen had helped her prepare. Then the prosecutor asked her to describe the tracking band. It was locked around my wrist on my first day of work. Miss Harrow said it was for security, to monitor my location and make sure I was safe. And what did the device actually do? It monitored my movements. If I stopped moving for too long, it would vibrate as a warning. If I ignored the warning, it would shock me. Can you describe these shocks for the court? Marina's throat tightened. Like touching a live wire. Like being electrocuted. It hurt enough that I'd collapse sometimes. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Just had to wait for it to stop. How many times would you estimate you were shocked? At least 30 times, maybe more. I stopped counting after a while. The prosecutor showed her photographs. The burns on her wrist, the pressure wounds, Dr. Brennan's medical report. Marina had to identify each injury, explain how it had been caused. It felt like being flayed open in public, her suffering displayed for strangers to examine and judge. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He was younger than Marina had expected, with slicked back hair and a smile that reminded her of Celeste's, practiced and empty. He approached the witness stand with exaggerated sympathy. Ms. Valles, I'm sorry for what you've been through. It must have been very difficult. He paused, letting the fake sympathy settle. But I need to ask you some questions about your employment history. You came to the United States from Mexico 3 years ago, correct? Yes. And during that time, you've held several positions: housekeeping, food service, childcare. Would you say you've had difficulty maintaining steady employment? I've worked steadily since arriving. But you've changed jobs frequently. 6 different positions in 3 years. That's a new job every 6 months. He made a show of consulting his notes. Would you say you have difficulty with authority, difficulty following instructions from supervisors? No. I left those jobs for better opportunities. Or perhaps because you had conflicts with your employers? Difficulties accepting workplace policies? Marina's pulse spiked. No, that's not. Ms. Valles, isn't it true that you owed $1,700 in unpaid parking tickets before you started working at Blackthorn Manor? That you had creditors calling you regularly? That you were in desperate financial circumstances? I had some debts, yes. I was supporting my daughter and my mother. But that doesn't mean... So you needed money desperately. And when Ms. Harrow offered you a position at an exceptionally high salary, $1,200 per week, well above market rate for housekeeping work, you accepted immediately. Correct? Yes, but... And then, when the job turned out to be more demanding than you expected, when the security protocols felt invasive, you decided to fabricate abuse allegations rather than admit you couldn't handle the position. Isn't that what really happened? No, that's not true at all. Ms. Velez, isn't it true that you're currently facing the possibility of deportation? That your work visa expires in 6 months, and that testifying against Ms. Harrow gives you leverage to request extended stay in the United States? Marina's hands clenched on the witness stand railing. My visa status has nothing to do with this. Celeste Harrow tortured me. She stole my wages. She shot Viktor Sokolov. These are facts, not fabrications. What's a fact is that you're a desperate woman with mounting debts, an expiring visa, and a daughter in Mexico you're desperate to bring to the United States. And you're willing to say whatever the prosecution wants you to say if it means staying in this country. The defense attorney's smile widened. No further questions. Marina was shaking when she left the witness stand. Agent Chen met her outside the courtroom, her expression carefully neutral. You did well. The judge saw through most of his tactics. He made me sound like a liar, like I made everything up for immigration benefits I don't even need. That's his job. But the medical evidence speaks for itself. The burns, the nerve damage, the documented injuries, those can't be faked. Agent Chen guided Marina toward the exit. The judge will rule on whether to proceed to trial by the end of the week. Try not to worry until then. Easy for her to say. She wasn't the one who'd been dissected in front of a room full of strangers. Her desperation and debts and immigration status put on display like evidence of bad character. Marina spent the next 3 days in the safe house, barely eating, barely sleeping. Her mother called daily with updates about Sophia, how she was doing in school, what games she was playing, how much she missed her mama. Marina tried to sound optimistic, tried to pretend everything was fine. But at night, alone in the unfamiliar bedroom, she lay awake replaying the defense attorney's questions and wondering if the judge had believed her. On Friday, Agent Chen called. The judge ruled in our favor. We're going to trial. Full criminal proceedings against Celeste Harrow for assault, attempted murder, fraud, wage theft, and human trafficking. Trial starts in 6 weeks. Marina should have felt relief. Instead, she felt exhausted. What happens now? Now we prepare your testimony for the actual trial. And Marina, this time the defense will be even more aggressive. They'll have had time to dig deeper into your background, to prepare more sophisticated attacks on your credibility. It's going to be brutal. I know. You can still change your mind, still accept witness protection. Marina looked at the photograph of Sophia on the bedside table. Her daughter's gap-toothed smile, her hands covered in purple marker, her innocence and trust, an absolute belief that her mother would come home. No, Marina said. I'm seeing this through. Then we start preparation on Monday. Be ready. Marina hung up and sat in the quiet safe house, feeling the weight of her decision settle over her shoulders. 6 weeks until trial. 6 weeks of preparation, of attacks on her character, of reliving the worst 3 months of her life in excruciating detail. And then, if she survived it, if the jury believed her, if justice actually worked the way it was supposed to, Celeste Harrow would go to prison. The Kovalenko group would be exposed, and maybe, just maybe, Marina could go home to her daughter and start rebuilding the life that had been stolen from her. But first, she had to get through the next 6 weeks without breaking. She touched her bandaged wrist, feeling the permanent nerve damage, the scars that would never fully heal. Physical reminders of what she'd endured, what she'd survived. And somewhere in Mexico, Sophia was drawing pictures of butterflies and waiting for her mother to come home with wings. The 6 weeks passed in a blur of preparation sessions, legal briefings, and sleepless nights. Marina met with Agent Chen almost daily, rehearsing testimony, anticipating defense strategies, learning how to answer questions without appearing defensive or hostile. The prosecutor's team treated her like a fragile artifact, valuable but breakable. And Marina hated the careful way they handled her, like one wrong word might shatter her completely. Viktor was released from the hospital after 2 weeks. He showed up at the safe house unannounced one afternoon, still moving stiffly, one hand pressed against his healing wound. You're not supposed to be here, Marina said, but she let him in anyway. Adrian's got people watching this place. If anyone from the Kovalenko group gets within 3 blocks, we'll know. Victor settled carefully onto the couch. I wanted to see how you're holding up. The trial starts next week. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Victor's smile was tired. I've been working with the FBI too. They want me to testify about finding the passports, about the surveillance equipment, about Celeste's operation inside the manor. My lawyer says it'll probably end my career in private security. No one wants to hire someone who testifies against their employer. Adrian's not pressing charges against you. No, but he's also not keeping me on staff. Can't have a security chief who cooperates with federal investigators. Bad for business. Victor didn't sound bitter, just resigned. I've got enough saved to get by for a while. Figure out what comes next. Maybe something that doesn't involve looking the other way while people get hurt. Marina sat down beside him. Do you ever regret it? Breaking the band off my wrist, confronting Celeste, sending that evidence to Adrian? Every day. But not for the reasons you'd think. Victor met her eyes. I regret that it took me so long, that I watched you suffer for weeks before I did anything, that Rosa died. And yeah, I think she's dead, not just missing, because I didn't push hard enough the first time. He touched his bandaged chest. Getting shot? That's nothing compared to living with knowing I could have prevented all of this if I'd just had the courage to act sooner. They sat in silence for a while. 2 people carrying guilt that didn't quite fit right, that chafed no matter how they tried to adjust it. The prosecutor says they found 3 more women, Marina said quietly. 3 more people Celeste placed in households through the Kovalenko network. All of them wearing tracking bands, all of them having wages stolen. The FBI's interviewing them now, building a pattern. That's good. More witnesses means harder for the defense to claim you're lying. Or it means more targets. More people the Kovalenko group want silenced. Victor stood up slowly, wincing. They'd have to go through Adrian's security, federal protection, and me. And I'm feeling motivated. He moved toward the door, then paused. Marina? When this is over, when Celeste is convicted and you can finally go home, don't let what happened to you define you. Don't let her win by making you afraid forever. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. The trial started on a Monday in late April. The courthouse was surrounded by news crews. Celeste's arrest had made headlines, and the story of a trafficking network operating inside wealthy estates had captured public attention. Marina arrived through a side entrance, flanked by marshals, trying to ignore the cameras and reporters shouting questions. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Marina recognized faces from Blackthorn Manor, Diana and Patricia, James, Marco. Adrian sat in the back row, his expression unreadable. And at the defense table, Celeste sat perfectly composed in a navy suit, her hair styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like someone who'd wandered into the wrong room, not someone accused of torture and attempted murder. The jury selection had taken 2 days. 12 people who would decide whether Marina was telling the truth or fabricating abuse for immigration benefits. Agent Chen had explained the prosecutor's strategy: establish the pattern of abuse through multiple witnesses, show the medical evidence, demonstrate Celeste's connection to the Kovalenko group, and let the jury see that this wasn't one disgruntled employee, but a systematic operation. The prosecution's opening statement laid out the case methodically. Celeste Harrow had been recruited by the Kovalenko group to identify and exploit vulnerable women. She'd placed at least 6 victims in various households over 4 years, each time using the same methods: forged contracts, stolen wages, tracking devices that delivered punishment for non-compliance. Rosa Mendoza had been her first victim at Blackthorn Manor. She'd disappeared 18 months ago, and her passport had been found in Celeste's locked safe. Marina Velez had been the replacement, subjected to identical treatment until Victor Sokolov had discovered the operation and exposed it. The defense's opening was smoother, more polished. Celeste Harrow was a dedicated professional who'd managed Blackthorn Manor flawlessly for 6 years. Marina Velez was a desperate immigrant with debts and an expiring visa who'd fabricated abuse claims when she couldn't handle the demanding position. The tracking band? A medical monitoring device Marina had agreed to wear due to a heart condition. Completely consensual, with signed documentation. The stolen wages? A simple accounting error, already corrected. The shooting? Self-defense against Victor Sokolov, who'd been embezzling from Adrian Moretti and had attacked Celeste when she'd discovered his theft. It was a masterful fabrication, and Marina watched 3 jurors nod along as the defense attorney spoke. The prosecution called witnesses in careful order. First Dr. Brennan, who testified about Marina's injuries and stated unequivocally that they were consistent with prolonged torture, not any medical condition. The defense attorney tried to suggest the burns could have been self-inflicted, but Dr. Brennan shut that down with clinical precision. The pattern of injury is inconsistent with self-harm. These are defensive wounds, the kind you see when someone is trying to protect themselves from an external source of pain, not inflicting it on themselves. Next came the other victims. 3 women, all testifying through translators, all describing similar experiences. Tracking bands locked around their wrists, wages stolen through forged amendments to their contracts, constant surveillance and punishment. One woman broke down crying on the stand, describing how Celeste had threatened to report her to immigration if she complained. Another showed the jury her scarred wrists, nearly identical to Marina's injuries. The defense attorney attacked each of them: immigration status, financial desperation, criminal records for minor offenses. But the pattern was undeniable. 4 women, 4 identical stories, 4 sets of medical evidence showing the same injuries. Then Victor testified. He was still moving stiffly, his voice rougher than usual, but his testimony was devastating. He described finding the passports in Celeste's safe, the surveillance equipment she'd purchased with forged authorization, the ledgers documenting her payments from the Kovalenko group. He admitted his own failures, not investigating Rosa's disappearance thoroughly enough, not questioning Celeste's authority sooner, and the jury saw someone taking accountability rather than deflecting blame. The defense attorney tried to paint him as a disgruntled employee with a grudge, but Victor's calm professionalism made the attacks bounce off harmlessly. "I worked for Adrian Moretti for 8 years, Victor said. I knew what kind of operation I was part of, but I also knew the difference between organized crime and human trafficking. Celeste crossed a line that no one with a conscience can ignore." Adrian testified on the 4th day. The prosecutor kept his questioning narrow, confirming that he'd never authorized the purchase of shock devices, never approved the wage reductions, never been aware of Celeste's connection to the Kovalenko group. Adrian answered with careful precision, making it clear he'd been deceived but taking responsibility for not catching it sooner. The defense attorney's cross-examination was aggressive. He tried to implicate Adrian in the trafficking operation, suggesting he'd known about Celeste's activities and profited from them. But Adrian's answers were too careful, too well prepared. He acknowledged running an illegal enterprise, but drew a hard line between his operations and Celeste's abuse. "I'm a lot of things," Adrian said coldly, "but I don't torture women for profit. That's not business. That's sadism with a profit margin." Finally, on day 6, Marina was called to the stand. She'd been dreading this moment for weeks. But when the prosecutor said her name, Marina stood up with surprising steadiness. She walked to the witness stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Her voice didn't shake this time. The prosecutor took her through her testimony gently. How she'd come to work at Blackthorn Manor, the first day Celeste had locked the band around her wrist, the escalating pattern of abuse. Marina described the shocks in clinical detail, how they felt, how often they happened, how she'd learned to move constantly to avoid punishment. She explained the stolen wages, the forged documentation, the photograph of Rosa that had made her realize she wasn't the first victim. "When you found Rosa's photograph," the prosecutor asked, "what did you think had happened to her?" "I thought Celeste had made her disappear, that Rosa had tried to leave or fight back, and Celeste had—" Marina's voice caught. "I thought she'd killed her, and that I was next." The courtroom was completely silent. "Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you report what was happening?" "Because Celeste controlled everything. My wages, my work visa documentation, my ability to contact my daughter. She made me believe that if I left, if I complained, I'd lose everything. She made me believe I deserved the punishment, that if I just worked harder, was better, more obedient, she'd stop hurting me. But she never stopped. She just found new ways to make it hurt." Marina looked at the jury as she spoke. Some of them were crying. Others looked angry. One older woman in the back row was staring at Celeste with open disgust. Then the defense attorney stood up, and Marina's stomach clenched. He started with the same tactics from the preliminary hearing: her employment history, her debts, her immigration status. But this time, Marina was ready. Agent Chen had coached her through every possible question, every trap he might set. Ms. Velez, you've testified that you were desperate to send money home to your daughter, that you accepted this position specifically because of the high salary, correct? Yes. So when that salary turned out to be lower than expected, you were disappointed, frustrated even. I was confused. The contract said $1,200, but I was only receiving $800. And rather than simply quit and find another position, you stayed for 3 months. Why? Because Celeste threatened me. She said if I left, she'd report me to immigration, that I'd be deported and never see my daughter again. But your visa was legitimate. You had nothing to fear from immigration authorities. I didn't know that for certain, and Celeste was very convincing. She made me believe she had power over my entire life. Or perhaps you stayed because even $800 a week was more than you could earn elsewhere. Perhaps the tracking band was uncomfortable but tolerable in exchange for the financial security. Marina met his eyes. No one tolerates being electrocuted for sitting down. No one accepts torture as a reasonable workplace policy. I stayed because I was trapped, not because I was willing. The defense attorney tried several more angles, suggesting she'd exaggerated her injuries, implying she'd collaborated with Victor to frame Celeste, questioning whether her testimony was being coached by federal agents. But Marina held firm, answering each question with the same steady calm she'd developed over 6 weeks of preparation. When she finally stepped down from the witness stand, Marina's hands were shaking, but her voice had never wavered. The prosecution rested its case on day 8. The defense called their own witnesses, character references for Celeste, a doctor who suggested Marina's injuries could have been caused by a skin condition, a handwriting expert who claimed the signatures on the forged documents might be authentic. But the evidence against Celeste was overwhelming. The medical reports, the surveillance logs, the passports. The testimonies from multiple victims all pointed in the same direction. Closing arguments happened on a Friday. The prosecutor summarized the evidence methodically, reminding the jury that 4 women had described identical experiences, that medical experts had confirmed the injuries were consistent with torture, that Viktor Sokolov had nearly died trying to stop Celeste's operation. The defense attorney made one final attempt to paint Marina as an unreliable witness driven by desperation, but his arguments felt hollow against the mountain of evidence. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. Marina waited in a private room with Agent Chen, unable to eat, unable to sit still. Victor joined them after a few hours, then Adrian. They didn't speak much. There was nothing left to say that hadn't been said in court. At 4:30 in the afternoon, the bailiff announced the jury had reached a verdict. The courtroom filled quickly. Marina took her seat behind the prosecutor's table, her hands clenched together. Adrian sat directly behind her, and she felt the solid presence of his security team flanking them both. Celeste was brought back to the defense table, her expression still composed, still confident. The jury foreman stood. In the matter of the state versus Celeste Harrow, on the count of assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of attempted murder, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of human trafficking, we find the defendant guilty. On the counts of fraud, wage theft, and conspiracy, guilty on all counts. Marina heard the words as if from a distance. Guilty. On every charge, maximum sentences. Celeste's composure finally cracked. She turned toward the jury, her mouth opening to say something, but her lawyer grabbed her arm and pulled her back down. The judge was already speaking, setting a sentencing date, dismissing the jury. But Marina couldn't focus on any of it. All she could hear was that single word echoing in her head. Guilty. Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed them. Marina let the marshals push through the crowd while cameras flashed and questions were shouted. She caught glimpses of headlines on phones held up by journalists. Manor manager convicted in trafficking case. Kovalenko network exposed. Justice for torture victims. Agent Chen guided her to a waiting car. You did it. You testified, you held up under cross-examination, and the jury believed you. Celeste is going to prison for a very long time. How long? The sentencing hearing is in 3 weeks, but the prosecutor is pushing for 30 years minimum. With her age and health, that's essentially a life sentence. Marina nodded, trying to process the information. 30 years. Celeste would be 73 years old if she ever got out. An old woman, powerless, forgotten.
What about the Kovalenko group? Victor asked from the front seat.
Celeste was just one recruiter. The network is still operating. The FBI's been rolling up their operations based on Celeste's records. We've made 17 arrests across 6 states. The leadership is still at large, but we've significantly disrupted their network. Agent Chen looked at Marina. You were the domino that started the collapse. Without your testimony, none of this would have been possible. The safe house felt different when Marina returned. Lighter, maybe? Or maybe she was different. She'd spent 6 weeks preparing to face Celeste in court, and now it was over. The woman who'd controlled every moment of her life for 3 months was going to prison. Justice, Agent Chen had called it. Marina wasn't sure yet what justice felt like. Relief, maybe. Exhaustion, definitely. But also something else. A space opening up inside her chest where fear had been living for so long. Her phone rang. Her mother. Marina, we saw the news. Everyone's talking about it. They're saying you were very brave in court, that you helped catch terrible people. Sophia wants to talk to you. Marina's daughter came on the line, breathless with excitement. Mama, Abuela says you're a hero. Are you really a hero? I don't know about hero, baby. I just told the truth. But you were brave. You stood up to bad people. That's what heroes do. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. When are you coming home? It's been so long. Marina felt tears burning in her eyes. Soon, very soon. I just have to take care of a few more things, and then I'm coming home to you. Promise? I promise. After she hung up, Marina sat with the phone pressed against her chest and let herself believe it. This was really over. She could go home, could hold her daughter, could start rebuilding the life that had been stolen from her. But first there was one more thing she needed to do. Adrian had offered her the settlement check weeks ago, $36,000 in compensation. Marina had let it sit in an envelope, unable to bring herself to cash it. It felt wrong somehow, accepting money for her suffering, putting a price tag on 3 months of torture. But now, sitting in the safe house with the trial behind her, Marina understood what the money really represented. Not compensation, transformation. The ability to go home to Mexico not as a victim returning in defeat, but as a woman who'd fought for justice and won. She called Adrian. I want to accept your offer, the settlement, the security for my mother's house, all of it, but I have conditions. Name them. I want you to create a fund for Rosa's family in Guatemala, for the other women who testified, for anyone else who was exploited by Celeste or the Kovalenko group. I want them to have access to legal help, medical care, therapy, everything they need to recover and rebuild. Adrian was quiet for a moment. That's not how these things usually work. Settlement money is supposed to compensate you specifically. I don't need all of it. I need enough to get home safely, to support Sophia while I figure out what comes next. The rest should go to helping other people who went through what I did. Marina's voice was firm. That's my condition. Take it or leave it. I'll do better than that. I'll match whatever you contribute. Create a foundation, hire proper staff to manage it. Make sure it's sustainable long term. Adrian paused. I'm getting out, Marina. Out of the criminal enterprise, out of the life I've been living. This trial made me realize I've been building an empire on other people's suffering. Maybe not the same way Celeste did, but the damage is still real. So I'm liquidating my operations, paying off debts, and transforming what's left into something legitimate. Why? Because I don't want to be the kind of man who builds a fortune while women are tortured in his basement. Because Victor nearly died protecting you, and that's on me for not seeing what was happening. Because I'm tired of looking in the mirror and seeing someone I don't respect. Adrian's voice softened. You stood up to Celeste when it would have been easier to disappear. That takes a kind of courage I'm not sure I have, but I'm going to try to find it. Marina didn't know what to say to that. She'd spent 3 months seeing Adrian Moretti as the ultimate danger, the crime lord who could make her disappear with a phone call. But the man on the phone sounded lost, searching for redemption in the wreckage of his own empire. Good luck, she said finally. I hope you find what you're looking for. You too. The sentencing hearing happened 3 weeks later. Marina didn't attend. Agent Chen said it wasn't necessary, and Marina had no desire to see Celeste one more time. But she listened to the news coverage that evening, sitting in the safe house with Victor and Agent Chen. The judge had sentenced Celeste to 42 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. The Kovalenko Group had been officially designated as a criminal enterprise, with federal warrants issued for 17 members of their leadership. Rosa Mendoza's body had been found in a shallow grave 2 hours outside the city, and additional murder charges were being filed against Celeste. Marina cried when she heard about Rosa, cried for the woman she'd never met, who'd suffered alone and died alone because no one had helped her in time, cried because it so easily could have been Marina in that grave, could have been any of the other women Celeste had targeted. "I'm sorry we didn't find her sooner," Agent Chen said quietly. "Didn't save her the way we saved you. It's not your fault. It's Celeste's and the Kovalenko Group's, and every system that made it possible for people like us to be treated as disposable." Marina wiped her eyes. "But at least now Rosa's family will have answers. We'll be able to bury her properly. That's something," Victor nodded. "And the foundation Adrian's setting up. We're calling it the Rosa Mendoza Justice Fund. First initiative is providing legal assistance to trafficking victims, making sure what happened to both of you doesn't happen to anyone else." Marina smiled despite her tears. Rosa would like that, being remembered as someone who fought back, even if she didn't survive to see justice. "You fought back for both of you," Agent Chen said. "That's what your testimony did. Gave Rosa a voice she didn't have when she was alive." A week later, Marina boarded a plane to Mexico. Adrian had arranged first-class tickets, secure transportation to her mother's house, and a security detail that would stay active until the FBI confirmed all Kovalenko Group leadership was in custody. Marina didn't argue. She'd learned the hard way that safety required vigilance. The flight felt surreal. Marina watched the landscape change below her, American cities giving way to countryside, then the border, then Mexican terrain. She was going home. After 3 months of torture, 6 weeks of trial preparation, and a lifetime of fighting to survive, she was finally going home. Her mother and Sophia were waiting at the airport. Marina saw them through the gate, her mother's weathered face, Sophia's purple dress and gap-toothed grin, and started running. She dropped her bag, pushed through the crowd, and grabbed her daughter in a hug so tight Sophia squeaked, "Mama, you're squishing me." "I know, I'm sorry, I missed you so much." Marina pulled back to look at Sophia's face. 6 years old, growing so fast, so beautiful it hurt. "Let me look at you. You got taller." "I'm very tall now, taller than anyone in my class." Sophia touched Marina's face carefully. "You look different, Mama. Tired." "I am tired, but I'm home now, and I'm not leaving again." Her mother hugged her next, and Marina felt the tears start again. "We were so worried." "Every day watching the news, seeing your face on television, hearing what that woman did to you? It's over now. She's in prison. She can't hurt anyone else." They drove to her mother's house in the old neighborhood Marina had grown up in. Everything looked smaller than she remembered, but also more precious. The corner store where she used to buy candy, the park where she'd learned to ride a bike, the church with the crooked steeple, her history, her foundation, the place that had made her who she was. That night, after Sophia had fallen asleep clutching Marina's hand, Marina sat in the small kitchen with her mother and told her everything. Not the sanitized version she'd given Sophia, but the truth, the tracking band, the shocks, the systematic destruction of her sense of self. Her mother listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with each detail. "I should have known," she said when Marina finished. "Should have heard it in your voice during our phone calls. But you sounded so determined, so focused on sending money home. I thought you were just working hard." "I didn't want you to know, didn't want you to worry." Marina looked at her bandaged wrist. "And part of me believed Celeste when she said I deserved it, that if I just tried harder, she'd stop hurting me. That's what abusers do. They make you believe it's your fault, that you're weak or lazy or somehow responsible for their cruelty." Her mother covered Marina's hand with her own. "But you're not weak. You survived. And more than that, you testified. You made sure she faced consequences. That takes a strength most people will never understand." Marina wanted to believe her, wanted to feel strong instead of broken, victorious instead of damaged. But the truth was more complicated than that. She'd survived, yes, but survival came with costs. The nightmares that woke her every night, the way she flinched when people moved too quickly, the phantom sensation of the band vibrating on her wrist even though it had been removed months ago. "I don't feel strong," Marina admitted. "I feel like I'm barely holding myself together." That's what strength looks like sometimes. Not some dramatic moment of triumph, but the quiet decision to keep going when everything inside you wants to give up. Her mother squeezed her hand. "You're home now. You're safe. And we're going to help you heal, one day at a time." The healing was slower than Marina wanted. Some days she could almost pretend she was fine. She'd play with Sophia in the park, help her mother cook dinner, laugh at old family stories. But other days, the weight of what she'd survived crushed her completely. She'd lock herself in the bathroom and cry until her ribs hurt, or she'd wake up at 4 a.m. convinced she heard Celeste's footsteps in the hallway. Her mother insisted she see a therapist. Marina resisted at first. Therapy felt like admitting weakness, like confirming that Celeste had broken her. But after 2 weeks of nightmares that left her exhausted and jumpy, she agreed to try. The therapist was a middle-aged woman named Dr. Reyes who specialized in trauma recovery. She didn't push Marina to talk before she was ready, didn't offer easy platitudes about time healing all wounds. Instead, she taught Marina techniques for managing panic attacks, for grounding herself when memories became overwhelming, for recognizing that healing wasn't linear. "You're going to have good days and bad days," Dr. Reyes explained during their third session. "Days when you feel like yourself, and days when you feel like that woman in Blackthorn Manor who couldn't escape. Both versions are real. Both are you. The goal isn't to erase the trauma, but to learn how to carry it without letting it control you." Marina worked with Dr. Reyes twice a week for 3 months. Slowly, the nightmares became less frequent. The panic attacks lost some of their intensity. Marina learned to recognize her triggers: sudden loud noises, people standing too close, anyone in a position of authority giving her orders, and developed strategies for managing them. But the real turning point came 4 months after the trial, when Marina received a letter from one of the other women who'd testified. Her name was Lucia, and she'd been trafficked by Celeste through a different household in Connecticut. She wrote about her own recovery, about the foundation Adrian had created, about how she'd used the legal assistance fund to fight deportation and was now working as an advocate for other trafficking victims. At the end of the letter, Lucia wrote, "You saved my life, not just by testifying, but by showing me that it was possible to fight back. Before I saw you on the news, before I heard about the trial, I thought I had to accept what was happening to me, that I was too broken, too powerless, too invisible to matter. But you proved that we're not invisible, that our stories matter, that justice is possible. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up when I couldn't." Marina read the letter 3 times, then showed it to her mother. "You did that?" her mother said softly. "You gave that woman her life back. You gave all of them a chance they wouldn't have had otherwise. I just testified. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the most powerful thing we can do." Marina thought about that a lot in the following weeks. She'd spent 3 months believing she was powerless, that Celeste controlled every aspect of her existence. But in the end, the simple act of refusing to disappear, of standing in court and saying, "This happened to me, and it was wrong," had dismantled an entire trafficking network. Not because she was special or extraordinary, but because she'd been visible, because she'd refused to let Celeste make her a ghost. 6 months after returning home, Marina got a job teaching at Sophia's school. It wasn't glamorous work, assistant teacher for first graders, modest pay, long hours. But it was hers. No one monitoring her movements, no one punishing her for rest, no one stealing her wages. She could sit down when she was tired, could eat lunch in peace, could exist without constant surveillance. The other teachers knew her story. Everyone in town had followed the trial, but they treated her normally. No excessive sympathy, no walking on eggshells. Just colleagues doing their jobs, occasionally asking if she wanted to join them for coffee after work. Marina usually said yes. She was learning how to be around people again, how to trust that not everyone wanted to hurt her. Sophia thrived with her mother home. She still drew pictures of butterflies, still wore purple whenever possible. But now she also drew pictures of Marina standing in front of a courthouse, labeled "My Brave Mama." Marina kept every drawing, even the ones that showed Celeste as a scribbled black figure with red eyes. She's processing, doctor. Reyes explained when Marina expressed concern about the violent imagery. Children understand more than we give them credit for. Let her work through it in her art. It's healthy. One evening in September, almost a year after Marina had first walked into Blackthorn Manor, Adrian called. I wanted to update you on the foundation. We've helped 43 trafficking victims access legal assistance, placed 12 women in safe housing, and funded therapy for 37 people. The Rosa Mendoza Justice Fund is making a real difference. That's good. Really good. Marina paused. How are you doing? With the transition out of your old life? It's harder than I expected. Turns out legitimacy is less profitable than crime. Adrian laughed, but it sounded tired. But I'm sleeping better, not waking up wondering which of my associates is planning to betray me, or which operation is about to collapse. It's strange being a regular businessman. Boring even. But I think I prefer boring. Boring is underrated. Victor says the same thing. He's working security for the foundation now, managing protection for witnesses and trafficking survivors. He asks about you constantly, wants to know if you're healing, if Sophia's doing well, if you need anything. Tell him I'm okay. Not perfect, but okay, and that I'm grateful for everything he did. I'll tell him. Adrian hesitated. Marina, I know I can never make up for what happened under my roof, can never undo the damage Celeste caused, but I want you to know, if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me. That's not pity or guilt. It's a promise. Thank you. That means something. After they hung up, Marina sat in the small kitchen and thought about redemption, about whether people could change, whether past sins could be balanced by future good works, whether Adrian Moretti would ever fully escape the shadow of what he'd been. She didn't have answers, but she knew that he was trying, and sometimes trying was enough. The one-year anniversary of the trial came in late April. Marina woke up that morning feeling strange, not scared exactly, but aware. A year ago, she'd stood in a courtroom and testified against the woman who'd tortured her. A year ago, she'd made the choice to be visible instead of disappearing. And now, 12 months later, she was teaching first graders their multiplication tables. Making lunch for Sophia, planning a birthday party for her daughter's 7th birthday, living an ordinary life that felt extraordinary because she'd come so close to losing it. That evening, Marina sat in the garden behind her mother's house and watched Sophia chase butterflies in the fading light. Her daughter moved with such unself-conscious joy, such absolute faith that the world was good and safe and full of beautiful things to discover. Marina wanted to preserve that innocence, that joy. Wanted Sophia to grow up never knowing what it felt like to be controlled, tortured, systematically destroyed by someone who smiled while hurting you. But she also wanted Sophia to understand that her mother had fought back, had stood up when it would have been easier to stay silent, had chosen visibility over safety because some things were more important than survival. Sophia ran over, breathless, holding a bright orange butterfly cupped carefully in her hands. Mama, look, I caught one. Beautiful. But you should let it go, baby. Butterflies need to be free. I know. Sophia opened her hands, and the butterfly lifted into the air, wings catching the last rays of sunlight. They watched it spiral upward, higher and higher, until it disappeared into the evening sky. Mama, are you free now, like the butterfly? Marina smiled, feeling tears burn in her eyes. Yes, baby, I'm free. And for the first time since leaving Blackthorn Manor, she believed it. Not because the nightmares had stopped, they hadn't. Not because the scars on her wrist had healed, they never would. But because she'd learned to carry what had happened to her without letting it define her. Had learned that survival wasn't the same as victory, but it was something. It was enough. She was Marina Velez. She was a mother, a teacher, a survivor, a witness. She'd been broken by Celeste Harrow's systematic cruelty, had endured 3 months of torture in silence, had stood in a courtroom and refused to disappear. And now she was sitting in her mother's garden, watching her daughter chase butterflies, living a life that Celeste had tried to steal from her. That was her victory. Not revenge, not even justice, though both had been necessary. Her victory was the ordinary magic of existing without fear, of sitting completely still without punishment, of moving at her own pace, eating when she was hungry, sleeping when she was tired, calling her daughter whenever she wanted, of reclaiming her body, her time, her life.
Sophia climbed into Marina's lap, her small arms wrapping around her mother's neck. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby, more than anything in the world.
They sat together as the sun set and the first stars appeared, a mother and daughter who'd survived separation and trauma and emerged on the other side with their bond intact. Marina closed her eyes and let herself feel the weight of Sophia in her arms, the warm evening air on her skin, the absolute stillness of a moment unmarked by fear. She was free. She was home. She was enough. And somewhere in a federal prison, Celeste Harrow was learning what it felt like to be controlled, monitored, stripped of autonomy and dignity. Learning what it meant to be powerless. Marina didn't take satisfaction in that exactly, but she didn't regret it either. Justice, she'd learned, wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. It was about saying, you hurt me, and that was wrong, and there are consequences. It was about making sure the next woman in Marina's position had a fighting chance because someone had refused to stay silent. Sophia fell asleep in Marina's arms as the stars multiplied overhead. Marina held her daughter close and thought about the future, about the school year starting in a few weeks, about Sophia's upcoming birthday party, about the ordinary challenges and joys of raising a child in a world that wasn't always safe but could be navigated with courage and community and the fierce determination to survive. She thought about Rosa, buried in a grave that finally had a name on it, about the other women Celeste had hurt, who were slowly rebuilding their lives with help from the foundation, about Victor and Adrian trying to make amends for their failures, about Dr. Reyes and Agent Chen and all the people who'd helped Marina when she couldn't help herself. And she thought about the version of herself who'd walked into Blackthorn Manor a year and a half ago, hopeful, vulnerable, desperate to provide for her daughter. That Marina had believed suffering was acceptable if it meant a better life for Sophia, had believed that being invisible kept you safe. But she'd been wrong. Invisibility hadn't protected her. It had made her an easy target. Visibility, standing in court, telling her story, refusing to disappear. That was what had saved her. Marina carried Sophia inside and tucked her daughter into bed. Sophia stirred slightly, mumbled something about butterflies, then settled back into sleep. Marina kissed her forehead and whispered, "Sweet dreams, baby. You're safe. We're both safe now." And for the first time in over a year, Marina believed those words completely. She was done surviving. She was living. And that made all the difference.